All right, good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m. We're here on Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. Hope everyone's doing well. If you're watching on ACC TV or on digital media or here in the chamber tonight, glad to have you with us. We're here for two purposes this evening. We have a special called session that I'll discuss in just a couple of moments, and then our regularly scheduled agenda-setting session as well. First order of business is, of course, a roll call from the clerk. So I'm going to ask Clerk Spratland to call roll.
Davenport, Lane. Here. Taylor. Here. Wright. Present. Fisher. Here. Poole.
Here.
Culpepper.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Norton.
Here.
Here.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. I appreciate it. As we do every Tuesday when we gather, I want to note our civility pledge, which we've adopted. And that indicates that the way we govern ourselves is often as important as the positions we take. Our collective decisions will be better when differing views have had the opportunity to be fully vetted and considered. All people, staff, commissioners, and public alike have the right to be treated with respect, courtesy, and openness. We value all input, and we commit to conduct ourselves at all times with civility and courtesy to each other. So that said, we have 4 items presently on our special called session agenda, but I do need to remove one item, so I would ask for a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 1 as it's not quite ready for prime time. So could I have a motion to that effect?
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Wright and a second from Commissioner Thornton to amend the agenda, removing item 1. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, amended stands as agended. All right, we have time for resident input now, and resident input on all segments of the agendas tonight follow essentially the same format. Residents have an opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes on an item. You don't have to use the full 3 minutes. And we do have cards, and would love for you to fill out one of those so we can accurately capture your name and place of residence. So if you've not gotten one of the cards from the table out front, please fill that out for us, and Attorney Drake, who's right in front of the podium, will take that from you, ensuring that we have accurately captured your information. You're going to notice there's a light in front of Clerk Spratland. It has 3 colors, very familiar probably to you all: red, yellow, and green. It will turn green when you begin speaking, yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining, and red when your time to speak is completed. And I will thank you for your time here with us tonight. We are going to have input in just a moment on new business that we'll have on our special called session, and then we'll have separate opportunities later on the consent agenda, on planning and zoning items, and on new and old business.
Mr. Mayor, we need to call, I guess, the regular agenda set meeting, Patrick Davenport. Commissioner Davenport wants to.
Commissioner Davenport wants to be here telephonically. All right, are we ready to do that?
Judd, are we having 2 sessions?
Just for the agenda setting meeting. Okay. We will do that then. All right. So we do have 3 items of new business on our special called session agenda tonight. And so if any member of the public would like to speak to any of those 3 items, those are items 2, 3, and 4 on the special called session. Now is that time. Going once, going twice.
Are you asking for people to speak now?
I'm asking for people to speak to any of the 3 items on the special called session agenda, which is the resolution accepting a lawsuit claim, a resolution regarding our water quality. There's a pending lawsuit about that, and then a resolution changing the meeting date for November. So those are the 3 items. All right, seeing no interest in those, I do need a motion for suspension of rules, given that it's a special called session. Do I hear such a motion? Got a motion from Commissioner Fisher and a second from Commissioner Taylor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll move right along. All right, item 2, of course, is a resolution authorizing settlement of a claim from several years ago. Do I hear a motion to accept the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Wright, and I've got a second from Commissioner Houle. Commissioner Wright, any further comments?
Ready to vote.
Commissioner Houle?
Only that I just think it's worth noting this is the second settlement in about a year's time that's at or above $250,000 related to an incident involving a taser. So when we think about renewing our contract for tasers with Axon, it might be worth factoring these sorts of things into the costs we assume. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any further input on this item? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to item number 3, which is the resolution to approve and authorize retention of counsel for participation in the potential class action suit. Is there a motion on this item?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Link, and I have a second from Commissioner Hool. Commissioner Link, any input on this item?
No, I don't think so.
Commissioner Hool?
Only to note for anybody who is interested in this, there's a pretty long FAQ attached to this that staff put together, so thanks to staff for putting that together. But also, if you want to learn more about what this is about and what it does and does not relate to for y'all personally or for us publicly, please give that FAQ a look.
Great, I appreciate you noting that. Any further input on this item? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to the last item on the special called session, and this is a resolution moving our November meeting to Tuesday, November 7th. Typically, our meeting after an election would be the Wednesday, November 8th, given that there's just a single item on the ballot for the bulk of Clarke County, with the exception of the Winterville area of Clarke County. We decided to retain the Tuesday date.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, got a motion from Commissioner Hool, got a second from Commissioner Myers.
Mr. Mayor, it's actually an ordinance, if I could read it.
Oh, that's wonderful. I appreciate it, Attorney Drake.
An ordinance to reschedule the regular November monthly business meeting of the Mayor and Commission from Wednesday, November 8, 2023 to Tuesday, November 7, 2023, and for other purposes.
All right, I appreciate it. All right, so ordinance has been read into the record. Got a motion from Commissioner Hool and a second from Commissioner Myers. Any comment, Commissioners?
Just that I hope everyone might get out and vote, either vote early or vote that day of beforehand so you can see us here that evening.
Early voting happening right now on Washington Street, a few feet from us. So head on down, everyone. All right, any other input? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. I'd entertain a resolution to adjourn following the executive session that we'll have after the agenda-setting meeting.
Second.
All right, motion from Commissioner Fisher, second from Commissioner Taylor to adjourn following the executive session regarding real estate acquisition or disposal that we'll have following the agenda-setting meeting. All right, so we are moving on now to said agenda-setting meeting.
You want to vote on that?
Oh, yes. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. I was just feeling the love for that motion. All right, any opposed? All right, nobody wants to stay here all night. I appreciate that.
11 adjourned.
All right, so first bit of resident input on our agenda-setting meeting are on the consent agenda items. I did want to check first if anyone, Commissioner, would like to remove an item from the consent agenda.
1 and 5.
All right, thanks, Commissioner Fisher. All right, Fisher 1 and 5, we'll have those under discussion.
4 and 7.
0, 6, 2, 0, 1, 6, 7, 6, 1.
Thanks, Commissioner Myers. Any others? Commissioner Hool?
Yes, 6.
All right, item 6, Commissioner Hool. All right, we're whittling down. Anyone want to eliminate the rest of the consent agenda? All right, so now is that time when residents could speak to items 2, 3, or 8. 2, 3, or 8. 2, 3, or 8 on our agenda. All right. All right, and those at the voting meeting on November 7th will be handled, of course, with a single vote. All right, we're going to move on then to old and new business. And,
You got one speaker, Mayor.
all right, 2, 3, or 8.
Okay, thank you. My name is Hattie Thomas Whitehead, and I am the co-chair of the Justice and Memory Project. I'm here to speak briefly about, I'm representing the co-chair of the Athens Justice and Memory Project. I want to speak about affordable housing, the the RFP has gone out.
And Ms. Whitehead, we will have that as part of old and new business. 'Cause
Okay.
that's item number 5. So I'll call you up in just a minute.
Okay.
And actually, stay at the podium, just want to make sure that nobody else wants to speak to 2, 3, or 8. All right, good. All right, so we are going to move on now to input on old and new business. And so those are items 1, 4 through 7, and 9 through 19. 1, 4 through 7, and 9 through 19. 1, 4 through 7, and 9 to 19. Okay, we're good. Come on now. Sorry.
Thank you. The RFP went out, and I know that it has not been awarded yet, but I just wanted to everybody to know that we have been, the Justice and Memory has been talking about this throughout the community, and we want to make sure that everybody knows that want to apply, that are elderly, for this elderly home repair, to get their homes repaired, that they will know about it. So I'm just here to say thank you for proving that, but I wanted everybody to know that when it is awarded, we want to work with whoever is get the awarded money. We want to be a part of that. The Justice Amendment Project want to be a part of that, so we can make sure that it's communicated everywhere in Athens, to all the neighborhoods, all the churches, and all the groups that we think needs to know about this. That's just why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitehead. All right, other input on old and new business. Again, those are items 1, 4 through 7, and 9 through 19. Good evening. Just let us know your name and your place of residence.
Yes, good evening. My name is Devin Rains, 335 Millstone Circle. I'm here to speak on item 12 in opposition of approval of the location proposed for the new fire station. In your work session on the 10th, our Commissioner, Patrick Davenport, expressed the concerns of the community, and I wanted to make sure that as a community member, I was able to speak to those concerns. I heard comments from commissioners that we know best and that we should approve, and I took that very much to heart, in that I feel that those that know best are those that are affected, the property owners, the parents, grandparents, farmers, homeowners. And we are an intelligent community, and we know what we need and don't need and the impacts that they have. We heard comments about, well, this impacts quality. It does impact our quality of life. Not quality as in small Q, providing of basic necessities, but that higher level of quality that we see in examples of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of foundational qualities needed for shelter and existence versus those of self-actualization. And I hold you all accountable for providing us with the opportunity to have that upper level of quality of experience in life. Now, comments that were provided in presentation on the 10th included PowerPoint presentations with images, of very zoomed-in pictures without context of those locations being immediately opposite of single-family dwellings, immediately adjacent to single-family dwellings, where the backyards, the side yards were adjacent to this proposed location. The presentation was very skewed, and I want you to consider that as you look forward to the content of this item. Now, of main concern for me, and others will express their concerns on this item, but a main concern to me is the impact on our streets, roadways, and our community. We have a community that's very bicycle friendly, and we are looking at additional trips anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 from these locations heading back into the city. Now, we've heard different numbers from the fire marshal, but if we look at those 1,000+ trips of 2 vehicles, sirens running in, 2 vehicles back out, that's 4,000 trips a year. Plus then the staff that need to get to and from approximately another 4,000 to 6,000 trips a year.
Thank you, Mr. Raines. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. I leave with you, sir, a petition against the location of the fire station.
attorney can take that
And
from
I
you.
will give this to him, and there's copies enough for everyone.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much.
Are there others who would like to speak to old or new business this evening? Good evening.
Hi. My name is Carter Dodd. I'm owner of 545-535-525 Millstone Circle. I own and operate Diamond Hill Farm, which is one of the few organic fruit, vegetable, flower farms in Athens-Clarke County. We're very intentional, wanting to have our farm and residents in Athens-Clarke County, and we're attracted to the Morton Road area and the AR zoning. It's designed to preserve working agricultural land in Clarke County. I voted for and support the SPLOST project to relocate Fire Station Number 5. However, I'm concerned that the construction of this facility on the proposed site adjacent to my property could affect our organic farm. Without an environmental impact report or study, it's impossible to say that the development of this site won't have a negative impact on our property or our farm. More generally, the entire Shoal Creek watershed and our shared natural resources. More importantly, I believe the site selection process was flawed. I attended and viewed all the meetings that were made publicly available. Throughout the process, the guiding consideration was construction feasibility and geographic coverage. I did not see any objective or analytical data used in determining the site area that would benefit greatest number of Athens-Clarke County residents and businesses. Response times, population density were not deciding factors at any point during the site selection process. County-owned and available land was also not considered. Many times proposed sites were referred to as vacant. Vacant lots, including my farm, are not vacant just because the landowner owns multiple parcels without a residence. They're agricultural uses, which is exactly what the AR zoning is designed for. I feel like a common sense approach by the site selection committee could have ruled out many of the proposed sites and saved valuable time and resources. I just hope that decisions made on our county's comprehensive fire and emergency services are going to be based on relevant and analytical data and not just by placing circles on a map. I think that if those processes had been followed, it'd be hard to not support the locations that were proposed. But as it stands, I don't think I can support any of the locations that were proposed by the site selection committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Maxine Eastham. I live at 420 Millstone Circle in Shoal Creek Farm subdivision off the Morton Road. I'm here tonight to share with you some of the concerns that I have about the process that was used to select the sites being recommended to you for Firehouse 5 replacement. My remarks have to do with how this selection process was designed and the resulting effectiveness of that process. I'm concerned, first of all, about the real commitment of leaders to hear the voices of people. When the public is involved, there has to be time for collaborative work. Collaborative work is hard, and people are not born knowing how to do it. Let us not give lip service only to the contributors of public input. We are afraid that that could be the case in this process. After 2 public input meetings, we didn't even know that there was a user group. That was never mentioned to us. That group just seemed to appear out of nowhere. Either a poor job was done of communicating the overall process, or after the public input was relatively negative, a group of government people just got together and decided we would take care of this. Now, I know that was a little sarcastic, and none of that is likely the truth. But in this case, it is the public's reality because that's what we saw. That becomes our reality. I'm concerned that the user group had total access with platform to the site selection committee, and the public couldn't even speak in those meetings. I have a concern that the only thing that seemed important was the fire department's ISO rating, about which no one could really give us much information. We were told that it impacted insurance, we had to use it, and we had to get a 1. At best, its use in this process, in my opinion, was disingenuous, it was misleading, and if I really say what I want to say, I'm going to say it was manipulative. There were never any comparisons given to us about what a change in site would mean, how that change in site might impact response times, trip generation, the impact of intersections on response times, and how all of that would differ by different sites. There was no real analytical data given to us. I hope tonight you're not being asked to make a decision without real analytical data, site by site. I'm also concerned that there were no other sites except sites on the Morton Road. What kind of alternatives are those?
Thank you, Dr. Easton. I appreciate it.
My biggest point, I'll be back.
Thank you. You're good, Judd.
You're on your own on that one.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Jody Weber, and I live at 245 Blue Heron Drive in Shoal Creek Farms. And I want to begin by letting you know that I'm grateful for so many things. I'm grateful to have this opportunity tonight to speak to you. I'm grateful to all of you who really, I know, have that thankless job, but one that we're grateful for, to protect our community. I'm grateful to the EMTs that stand by ready to take care of us. And I'm grateful for the home that my husband and I built almost 30 years ago in this shrinking agricultural residential portion of our county. I'm grateful for the organic farm that's right near us, as well as the horses, cows, goats, and chickens. And I'm grateful to the county official who shared the map with those little circle overlays to help us better understand how to cover the land on the east side. But I'm confused as to why there was no population data connected with those circles. I'm confused why those little circles didn't help us to understand how to best serve the people and meet the needs of the people. And I'm confused as to why that isn't at the forefront of your decision-making. We've heard over and over again that the majority of what the fire department does is serve these medical responses, and people need that service quickly. There's a handful of people out on Morton Road. The density is out on Lexington. It makes sense to me that a firehouse closer to Walmart would make more sense than one out off Morton Road. So I encourage you to consider this perspective when making your final decision. I encourage you to go back to the drawing board using population density as your criteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Anyone else here to speak this evening? Evening.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hank Joyner, a 72-year resident of Athens-Clarke County. I live at 410 Millstone Circle, Athens, Georgia. And first, I would like to take a moment to thank the firemen and the EMTs, the sacrifice that they make every day for the rest of us. Never let us forget the ultimate sacrifice many of these firemen made on 9/11 and continue to make every day. Please reconsider your site selection as you look at this process, and for these reasons. One, the locations selected, I think, are very average. Their ISO scores are very low or average at best. A rural setting may increase response time, a rural setting may increase response time due to the longer distance back to the population areas that this fire station would serve. A better location may be US 78 at Morton Road or Robert Hardiman, or possibly closer to Southeast Clark Park. Also, there's a bigger issue at hand here, is the effect that this fire station could have on the underlying agricultural residential zoning of the area. At the present time, with Old Lexington Road coming through the area with all its through traffic from Oglethorpe County, we're beginning to see a road that's turning into an arterial road. I don't think that the roads in an agricultural residential zoned area were meant to be arterial roads for through traffic commuting to Athens on a daily basis. Also, I think that this fire station can have a direct effect on the daily life of people in the AR zone. Again, the traffic on Lexington Road is already a proof that this is happening. The ideals that were set forth in the agricultural residential zoning, which I was on that committee in 2000 when we established the new land use committee, land use plan, was set forth to be agricultural and residential and low impact. A fire station in this location is going to have multiple trips up and down Morton Road every day, up and down Old Lexington Road every day. And in my opinion, it's going to take much longer time to respond to the needs, emergency response needs of people that are further west than the fire station is. So I'm not nearly as professional a speaker as the other people have been up here, but I hope you take my comments to heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner. Anyone else here to speak this evening?
My name is Rudy Chimo, and I live in 245 Millstone Circle. And I also am in opposition to this. We've all worked hard to preserve the green belt area around the city and everything like this. And I moved in that area 6 years ago to, if you can believe this, retire in Athens, Georgia, from Florida, which now you know why. And one of the things that drew me to that area was it was agriculture. And our community, we have no lights. We have no lights in that community because we don't want light pollution. The noise is minimal. We don't want noise pollution. I have a feeling that it's not just a fire station that y'all want to build there. I have a feeling that it might become an area for training for fire stations, because 4 acres seems to me like a lot of land for a fire station, when most fire stations can be built on their own fingerprint or footprint. So I'm asking you all to really consider what you're doing here, and I would like to have representation of my district, but it seems that I just don't get that.
He's here. He's
Telephonically here.
Oh, well, good. It's good to hear. Good to see, or not see. So anyway, that's what I have to say. We believe that if the AR zone is opened, it's going to give us more sprawl, and it doesn't make sense. We've seen what they've tried to tell us was important to them, but the committee that formed this or is recommending this to you, but we just don't really see it at all. And what about the impact for corridors for the animals, the wildlife, the birds, the eagles that fly through that area? Are we going to have lights on top of a fire station? If there's going to be more activity than maybe 2,000 runs a year, if you're going to do training and things like that, we're going to have more of an impact than you all are letting on, and that's something that I would like to see everybody consider. And maybe we could do some repurposing of property that's in the Athens area that's just being an eyesore for everybody, rather than tearing up somebody else's property and more ground and having an environmental impact that we know is not favorable to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chino. If there are others who are interested in speaking, you can certainly line up at the podium. Good evening.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for listening to all these comments. I wanted to amplify two of the comments that were made tonight, and but let me introduce myself. My name is Bob Sink, S-Y-N-K. I live at 375 Millstone Circle, just off Morton Road in southeast Clarke County. And first comment I want to make is regarding the site selection process itself. It was based upon the centroid of geography in southeast county, not the centroid of where the people are in that part of the county. So in other words, it's your constituents who are getting the short end of the stick here. We're serving, the way the fire station has been configured in the southeast Clarke County is great for serving cows and chickens and the birds and the deer and the wildlife, but all the people are 5 miles away. So please reconsider the siting based on that situation. Secondly, I want to point out that Robert Hardeman and Morton Road are really logical extensions of the Firefly Trail from Winterville, extensions of the trail down to southeast Clarke County. There's a lot of cyclists on that road, and I think the road is dangerous enough already with high-speed traffic, no traffic lights. And I think the addition of the fire station on that corridor probably makes bicycling that much more difficult, and it's also a hazard for the firefighters themselves. So, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sink. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Michael Castengera. I live at 1505 Morton Road, and I'll be brief because I just want to emphasize a couple of the other points that the others have made, and they have been very, very good. The biggest one to me was the rationale for the decision has not been clarified enough. As somebody else pointed out, a geographic location based on population distribution would seem to be a lot more logical, and that's not shown in any of the data that I've been able to see, and that raises severe questions. Number two is the second question raised by others was the user input and the input from residents. That seems to have been debatable at best, and that raises a serious question about the process. Understandable, as others have emphasized, the need for the fire station at some point, somewhere, but the rationale behind this and the considerations behind it leave some questions that I know this commission will consider in depth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Castengera. Good job. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Terry Anglin. I live at 370 Millstone Circle here in Athens. Excuse me. My husband and I moved here approximately 1.5 years ago. And you're not going to believe this, but I moved from Oconee County into Athens-Clarke County. We moved here because we lived in downtown Watkinsville, and downtown Watkinsville was turning into not a big city, but it was turning into a very populated city. The reason we moved here was because we found a home that we considered to be in the country, so to speak. Not houses weren't close by. There was agricultural space, quiet. We knew that moving there was no convenience store, no firehouse, no doctor's office, that you had to come into town for that. And we would like to keep our area that kind of neighborhood where it's quiet, no convenience stores, no fire stations. I appreciate the time that you've put into selecting us, or the site selection committee has put into looking at the sites, but I agree with so much of what has already been said, that those 3 sites are just not conducive to our neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Anglin. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Julia Quinn. I live at 106 Hearthstone Court. And I won't take 3 minutes. I just wanted to mention that one of the sites that was selected is an eBird hotspot. For those unfamiliar, eBird is a citizen bird watch group that is worldwide, and in that area there have been unusual species sighted, such as the Mississippi kite, the swallowtail kite, harrier hawks, and a bald eagle. And to have a firehouse there with lights on 24/7 would be disruptive to them, as well as the migrating birds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Anyone else here to speak this evening? Good evening.
Hi.
Good job.
My name is April Rains, 335 Millstone Circle, and I agree with everything that's been said here in opposition to the fire station. Response times would be paramount in medical and fire emergencies, and putting it so far from population density is definitely going to increase your response times. But the one thing I wanted to point out that hadn't been said, the petition that was turned into you from the first speaker had 69 signatures on it in opposition to the location of the fire station. So I just want everyone to be aware that as a community as a whole, we have said over and over, we are not in favor of this location. We loved having services, but we moved away from the city center on purpose. And we respect the fire stations, respect the firemen, the EMTs, grateful for their services, but just not right in our backyard. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Rains. Good evening.
Good evening. Bob Gardner, 480 Millstone Circle, and probably in a unique position because I've also lived across the street, have a place at 1505 Morton Road. So I have two locations in the area that's being talked about. And I agree with a lot of the comments, all the comments the residents have made thus far. And there's one thing too, Morton Road it's a little more heavily traveled than you might expect. It's not a safe place to pull over if you've been on that road. If you've got to pull out of the way of a fire truck, there's not a lot of room, there's no shoulders in a lot of it. You've got sloping ditches, the roads are narrow, there's other traffic, there's bicyclists. It's just not a road conducive to a lot more traffic. It really isn't, but just appreciate it and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Anyone else here to speak this evening on old or new business? All right, hearing none, I would like to suggest to the commission that we hear planning and zoning items now. Would entertain a motion to adjust the agenda in such a manner.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion from Commissioner Wright, second from Commissioner Taylor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and invite Brad Griffin up to your planning and zoning items. All right, so kind of manner of order of events, we get the presentation from Brad Griffin. We'll go ahead and have public input individually on each item after each presentation. and then discussion by the commission. Good evening, Brad.
Good evening, thank you all. We've got three for you this evening. First item I will move through fairly quickly because I think we've seen this more than once. And it's still very similar in terms of what they're proposing. This is 1125 Newton Bridge Road. It's a request to rezone a piece of property from employment industrial to single-family RS25. There is a future land use change associated from employment center to traditional neighborhood. The proposal is a 216-unit single-family detached subdivision. This application does come to you from the applicant offering a voluntary binding site plan, and it does require approval of a wastewater pump station in order to serve it with the plan as shown. You see there in comments, and we'll get into a little bit more, the staff recommendation as well as planning commission does not support the binding site plan, and I'll explain why in just a minute. You see the property here on the along Newton Bridge Road. It's currently undeveloped, adjacent to the park to the south. Current employment, traditional neighborhood is proposed. This is your future land use classification. And that's your zoning change. There is other RS25, as you can see, that touches it on both sides, to the north and to the south. And then the proposed design of the subdivision, which carries with it the offer of a binding plan. The recommendation from the Planning Commission was to ultimately approve the future land use and approve with a conditioned zoning. They felt like it was compatible with future land use map and zoning map. The lack of infrastructure was a big discussion point throughout the meeting, and essentially the cost associated long-term with maintenance of the required infrastructure. It's our understanding that the applicant, if approved, is offering to pay for the construction of the lift station for the sewer, but long-term maintenance still, it was something that they had some concerns with, as well as there are two intersection improvements that would also require long-term maintenance if approved. And then this is not a PD, so they can't ask for waivers as part of a binding plan, and you guys are accustomed to seeing that associated with binding plans with PDs or even with special uses. They can ask for a variance to be granted to ask to make a change. In this case, the binding plan that was shown on the plan, there is a note at the bottom of it that is requesting a variance for driveway separation on the plan. So they're unable to meet their driveway separation. They can't ask for a variance as part of a binding plan that's not associated with either special use or with a PD where you could grant a waiver for it. And so between that and then there's some other areas with road design and things that there were concerns with both public utilities as well as our traffic engineering department and public works department, strongly considering this not to be a binding site plan. So Planning Commission is recommending that it be approved with the condition that it basically, there is a limited area of development, a limited area of clearing that is representative based on the plan. So it's basically that area inside of the dashed line that kind of runs along the back of the lots on the outside of the street network. That would be their limit of clearing, and the condition's a little more lengthy than that, but just making sure it's clear, and they did give them a 5% allowance for some additional clearing if necessary down the road. But with all of that, the Planning Commission recommendation is to approve, and I believe it was a 7-2 vote.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it. I think this is in District 9, is it correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Thornton, go ahead and kick it off. Oh, I apologize, Commissioner. Actually, I meant to call for public input first.
Oh, okay.
Let me do that,
Okay.
and then we'll
Okay.
return to you, okay? Any member of the public like to speak to this side? Good evening. Just provide your name for the record.
Yes, sir. Tiffany Hogan, Vice President of Forward Planning for D.R. Horton, 1371 Dogwood Drive, Conyers, Georgia. And Mr. Attorney, there you go. Good evening. So as you've heard from staff, we are here again presenting a residential development project of 212 single-family detached homes. That lot count has changed since the last time that we were before you. In order to create more separation between the sewer and the pump station and the closest home, we did reduce the unit count by 4 units. We are respectfully requesting that the mayor and council approve the plan. We offered a voluntary binding of the application based on feedback from the last hearing. At that time, we did urge mayor and council to understand that engineering had not been performed on this site yet, and there would be the LDP process, which the staff would have an opportunity to review things in further detail with more of that engineering in order to meet the design criteria and such. So what you have heard from staff is now we've come full circle back to that comment. With us voluntarily offering to bind the plan, there are some technical things that would be figured out in that phase, and we would not be able to begin development until those things were figured out. But the engineering that would be completed would give us the opportunity to do that. So we would respectfully request that this be approved with the condition from Planning Commission regarding the areas of development, as staff has pointed out. Some of the concerns also that staff pointed out are regarding the pump station that has to be approved in order for this project to be viable. So contribution for maintenance has already been agreed upon by us. We've worked that out with the engineering team for the county, that there would be a significant financial contribution for future maintenance. In addition, we would actually be designing and installing the pump station ourselves, not just making a contribution for that to happen. And then it is dedicated over to the county. Regarding the finances, there are also sewer tap fees that are associated with it, which would go into a pool for such things as the future maintenance of the pump station. Also, with 212 new homes coming to the area, property taxes for those 212 homes would also be coming into the area. With some research, we found that currently property taxes in the area are between $1,700 and $3,000. So multiply that times 212 new homes, and that is adding to the increased tax base for the area. You would also have 212 new households that are consumers and that are living in Athens-Clarke County and able to shop here and add to your tax base as well. And Mr. Mayor, we do also have our sewer engineer here. If mayor and council have questions regarding the pump station specifically, he can answer those questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I just want to offer some clarification on what Brad said related to the site plan. It's important for the commission to understand that this is still a straight rezoning, and a rezoning does not allow for a binding site plan or ordinance. I think, and so what the Planning Commission essentially sought to do was to get as close to that as they could, and what they could get to was to say a condition that you can only develop in this area shown in the dotted or hashed lines. But what you see is not necessarily what they may develop in those lines. And, you know, the only way to get a binding site plan is to do an application for planned development, which you're aware requires a lot more engineering and a lot more cost, to me, quite frankly. And I think that may, so I just want to emphasize, because John Hawkins, Chief Assistant Attorney Hawkins, who works with planning, thought it was important I emphasize, and Brad's already said it, and I'm saying it again, so that you understand the limits of what we're able to do with this.
For example, the street grid could look different.
Right, the street, exactly.
But still within our development standards, and there are standards for a street grid, but it may not look exactly like.
Correct. And the lot layouts could be different, for another example, yeah.
Thanks for that point, Judd. I do want to see if anyone else would like to speak to this
Is that
item.
correct?
Thanks, everyone. All right, Commissioner Thornton, you ready?
Yeah, I've been in contact with Ms. Hogan. Actually, we talked again today. I think the fact that 212 homes is good, especially with our housing shortage. I did express some concern, and and I don't know if Ms. Hogan made it clear, the reason why it's now 212 is because they've moved they've cleared out 4 units for space for the separation with the pump station. So instead of the 216 we heard about originally, it's 212. I do struggle with this not being binding. I do think that, and I'm still trying to figure out why not. The other thing that I know we have no say-so in design as far as the commission is concerned on what houses look like and what lots look like, but I definitely expressed concern that being this is really the first subdivision in my district, I really did not want a cookie cutter community, but I know I don't have no say-so over that. And as far as property taxes, yes, we're going to bring in more money with property taxes, but I am being sensitive to those residents who've lived over there for a while on their impact on property taxes. Again, I know those are the things we can't do nothing about, but it also led to a conversation about TADs. Maybe there's some way we, and Mayor, I did tell Ms. Hogan I would talk to you about it, and how maybe if they apply for a TAD, some of those TAD dollars could create some amenities for the neighbors in that area. Just a thought. But I told Ms. Hogan I'm 90-something%, but I'm not 100% yet.
Thanks, Commissioner. Other input? Commissioner Fisher, I know your district's right immediately
Yeah,
adjacent.
actually. And thank you, Commissioner Thornton. I guess my only concern is, again, we will be putting a whole lot of traffic on Newton Bridge Road. There's not a red light anywhere on Newton Bridge, and that needs to really be considered. I would not put that on the builder, but we need to think about that as a commission about traffic light. We have had several fatalities on that particular street, and especially coming off Capwood, turning onto Newton Bridge, either left or right. So my concern is with the number of cars, with it being a multi-family, single-family district, it's going to be a lot of cars. That's 212 homes, probably 2 cars per family. You do the math. So, and again, I'm always going to try to support my fellow commissioner on this, but I am concerned about the traffic, and that we need to really look at lighting and traffic calming on that particular stretch of highway. And again, we already got those apartments that's going up, right now. So it's going to be a crowded area on Newton Bridge Road. So just keep that in mind.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I would make a quick note that I've tasked the TAD committee with examining safety improvements at both of those intersections, at Capwood and at Vincent Drive, and multimodal access up the corridor all the way to the ballpark. So there is a little bit of work in process on that. While you're on that point, I would want to ask staff, and this may be Judd or Blaine or both, we've often seen requirements for some intersection improvements fall upon a development entity if that development is going to provide a significant change in the level of service. Could get a little bit of information from us, whether tonight or later on from Public Works, as to kind of what that tipping point would be with a residential subdivision so close to this intersection with Vincent Drive and Newton Bridge?
What the traffic levels would be that
would
be a
trigger
concern?
the requirement that they contribute to the infrastructure improvement. I've got a few other folks. I saw Commissioner Wright first.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate this view so that we can see the buffer because of that pipeline easement. They can't go, to where it would be developed in the backyards of that existing subdivision, similar to down here. And Brad, in my packet, the next slide would you have this, no? So there's a diagonal line in the similar picture but closer, and I was wondering what that meant. Maybe, yeah, yes, yeah. So what is that where there's no trees?
It's a power line.
So the power line is happening through the middle. Okay, so see that bare line and then go back to where it's to be developed. So that power line is coming straight through the proposed subdivision?
It's on the outside edge of the built environment.
I'll get with you in email
I mean,
about
I think
that.
it's probably a power line of a nature that could be moved. It was something that we pointed out in our staff report from,
Yeah.
that it was, the way it was going through lots as shown, without being moved, could create some problems for the ability to develop those lots.
Okay.
But I don't think it's a major transmission
It's
line or
not one of the,
something.
okay.
No.
Okay.
I think it's fair to say, Brad, that it's fairly common that an existing power line may have to be relocated if there's a new development coming in. So that's a common phenomenon.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Houle?
Thank you, Mayor. District 6 also gets close to here, kind of peters out in a bunch of neighborhoods, including Saxon Woods, that are very adjacent, even though it doesn't get out to Newton Bridge Road. But I'm hesitant to support this for the same reasons as I've stated in the past when this has come up, and the application has hardly changed, and so my opinion hasn't much either. But I did want to take this moment to just highlight a few things that stuck out to me in the staff report. I tend to be more aligned with staff's recommendation for denial than the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval with a condition. Staff notes the project is mostly incompatible with the comp plan, particularly regarding the cost of public services, the lack of variety in housing types, and the missed opportunity to design a neighborhood that could serve as a walkable node to the park, which is right there. Approval of the rezone would flip the list of allowable uses from commercial and industrial to almost exclusively single-family residential. And of course, that's a regional impact, not just the parcel itself. Staff has reviewed the plan and noted multiple code compliance issues that need resolution prior to the approval of a binding plan. Of note, several departments have advised against a binding plan due to technical concerns. Sorry, I'm still getting over being sick, so my voice ain't the best. When I think of D.R. Horton, this large corporation that's coming in to offer to develop this sort of site, I don't have a whole lot of empathy for like the cost it might require them to put forward to do a bit more due diligence, to offer a binding site plan that is clearly out of alignment with staff's concerns for pretty much all the same reasons as the last time they brought this forward. It just doesn't seem to me like very much of an act of good faith on behalf of the company. They also note, even if the applicant pays for infrastructure installation and contributes money to fund the first years of maintenance in the pump station, this infrastructure will eventually be wholly maintained by the county. Staff's concerns that the tax base created by this development proposal would not be enough to sustain the infrastructure that this neighborhood would depend on. That, I imagine, will align very well with what we're going to see come from the economic analysis that we're going to see Planning Department do soon. And so generally thinking of like the elevated tax base that's created by these homes covering the costs of the infrastructure, I don't see convincing evidence that that's going to bear out. And finally, they say that given the lack of compatibility with adopted ACC Gov plans and potential negative fiscal impact on the county, they're recommending denial of both the future land use and zoning request. And that really aligns with what it boils down to for me, which is not wanting to approve a rezone like this, which at the end of the day, no matter what they're offering, is actually a non-binding plan, without first getting through our growth concept and future land use map changes. So the idea that residential might make sense here as part of a development, whether it looks very much like this or very different and perhaps more of a mixed use, is a conversation to be had as part of the broader picture of the county-wide reimagining we're going to be doing with these big plans that are already underway. I'd hope that we would get through that before we would move forward on this. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Lincoln and Commissioner Meyer.
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of Commissioner Hoole's comments. I don't see that this is really much different than the project that was presented to us several months ago. And I'll echo some of staff's comments about the lack of diverse housing types. You know, we talk frequently about our need for affordable housing, and there is no indication anywhere in this plan that will see anything approaching, you know, even our median income affordable standards. This is certainly a growing part of the county, and it's a area that's ripe for growth. I represented this area for 8 years, so I'm very, very familiar with it, and I'm very familiar with this parcel. I would, you know, fought hard to make sure that that it would be included in possible TAD. So I would like to see a planned development here, and I'd like to see something that had amenities that would serve the entire area, you know, particularly with as far as shopping goes. There's a whole bunch of residential out here and not much that actually serves the people that live there. It's adjacent to a park, so it's also kind of a destination area. I really would like to see something that has a lot more diverse housing types and has some commercial use that can benefit the entire community. And with no binding site plan, you know, a straight up rezone, you know, there's no guarantee that we'll even get this many units, quite frankly.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I'll try to be short because I'm just echoing my two colleagues' comments. Like many of my colleagues, I've participated in some of the activities that the Planning Department has put together as we look for a future land growth. And we're in the midst of this process where we're really thinking about what our future is going to be like. I want to wait and see what comes through that unless we're getting something that is so mind-bogglingly compatible with our comprehensive plan and the values of the community that we want to, and we would want to see that in a planned development. I'm going to be talking about the next item that's coming up soon, and I haven't had many in my side of town, but I've learned more about planned developments, and as Commissioner Houle just referred to, D.R. Horton is a large company that has the financial resources to do that kind of planned development, where a smaller developer is more at risk when they do that. I won't read the two highlighted sections I have from the staff report because my colleagues have mentioned them already.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Thornton?
I do appreciate everybody's comments, and I think that, like I said, I'm in the 90s, and I do struggle with it, the non-binding. I don't know where the communication breakdown has been. I really don't, but I do know when it appears on the agenda next month, I will be clear on what my recommendation. And I hope the things and the critiques you're giving D.L. Horton, I hope you do the same thing for other developers when they come before us. I'll just leave it at that.
All right, moving on to the next one.
Okay. Next item, 1580 Barnett Shoals Road, a straight rezoning request from commercial office to RM2. There is a plan associated with this, but it is non-binding. This is just a straight rezoning request to change the designation that is also compatible with the underlying future land use classification. So I won't get a lot into the details. What this type of non-binding plan is intended to do is just give you an example of what could be built on the property if the zoning was changed. It's property at the corner of Research and Barnett Shoals. This is the small kids soccer field in the woods that have been there for a long time and put together as part of a proposed development. It's all currently zoned commercial office. You can see from this aerial, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, that is the entrance to the public shopping center that will ultimately work its way across to the new Kroger development and then to College Station. So you can see proximity-wise, it's very walkable to services, it's walkable to schools. And these are the things we get into, and I think the Planning Commission considered, where we didn't feel as strongly about a binding plan as whether or not the change in zoning would be compatible given the area and what's around it. Mixed-density residential does allow for RM2 zoning as a by right zoning, so we don't have to amend our future land use plan if you were to consider this. It is surrounded by other multifamily zoning in the area as well. And you see there, that would be the change. The property immediately to the southeast on this drawing is also zoned RM2. Biggest difference between commercial office and RM2 from a development ability. Commercial office allows for some real limited retail. It allows for professional office, medical office development, and in addition to that, you could put 16 beds per acre, 16 bedrooms per acre of multifamily over the top of any of that commercial. To go to RM2 takes away the commercial option, but it increases the density from 16 bedrooms to 24. So it's a 50% increase in residential and elimination of the commercial. Here you can see the property looking from Barnett Shoals. This is the concept plan that you see access directly out onto Barnett Shoals. But again, not a binding plan, and just to show what could be built with this proposed zoning. Recommendation from the Planning Commission is to approve with a condition is compatible future land use map and the zoning map. Driveway and stormwater issues would more than likely change the site plan. Based on the number of units, staff feels strongly this will trigger a second point of access, which they're not showing right now. There are also stormwater issues in that immediate area, which led to the condition recommended to be placed on it by our Stormwater Division of Transportation and Public Works, that any stormwater system with development of this property must use Barnett Shoals Road for its outlet, per the comment, and that's because we've got some downstream issues if we went towards research that are private systems that would have to be improved. So they're going to have to go to Barnett Shoals regardless of what's developed on the property, and we would ask that if approved, that be made a condition of the zoning change. With that, the staff recommendation, or Planning Commission recommendation, is to approve with that condition.
Thanks, Brad. Commissioner Myers, this is...
Public comment?
Oh, yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, anyone here to speak to this item? Good evening.
Frank Pittman with Pittman and Greer Engineering. We're at 1050 Barber Creek Drive in Watkinsville. I'm representing the buyers of the property. I also have represented the current owners of the property over, I don't know, the last 15, almost 20 years that they've owned it, and they've tried to find commercial users for the property, and nobody's been able to make it work. They've had a few people look at it over the years. It's tough for commercial use. It's too small for certain commercial users, and the topography doesn't work for others. So it's been a challenge for commercial uses. The current buyers are wanting to do to put 66 one-bedroom units on the property, similar to the one-bedroom development just to the north of this that was done 2 years ago by one of the same developers. What they have found coming out of COVID is that there are a lot of people that don't want roommates, especially young professionals and vet students and grad students. So the one-bedroom units are very well desired, and that's what they want to do with that. Just to touch on a couple of the staff comments, as Brad mentioned, there was a comment about projected trips, and it may trigger a second access point. That it does not trigger a second access point. And I've had conversation with the city traffic engineer, and he agrees with me on that. He doesn't want a second access point. The stormwater, I'm well aware of that situation. I actually worked along to try to alleviate that problem for the current property owner across research years ago. So our plan the whole time had been to go to Barnett Shoals. So that condition that's on there is not a problem for us. That was already the plan. Otherwise, as mentioned, we're not offering up a binding plan, but this is the plan they want to do. Obviously, it may tweak a little bit as we do grading plans and that kind of stuff and utilities, but this is the plan. And I'll just end that with, the staff has recommended approval, so has the Planning Commission. It does match the property to the south and also matches future land use, and we'd be open to any questions y'all may have. Thank you.
Mr. Pittman. Is there anyone else here to speak to this item on Barnett Shoals Road?
Hi, my name is Charlie Hill, and I'm the developer. We live on Barnett Shoals Road, about 4 miles past Barnett Shoals Elementary School. And I've been in the commercial real estate business for 40 years now. This is my 10th year on the board of the Athens Land Trust. And so I developed, you may know, the Taqueria del Sol on Prince Avenue. I developed back in, I think, '08. I bought an old gas station there and brought Taqueria up from Atlanta. And I think it's been a great addition to Athens and is very well designed. And design and architecture and quality construction are the things I'm really concerned about. I have no interest in being involved in something that's poorly constructed, poorly designed, or really, if it's bad for Athens. I want it to be good, something good for Athens and something I can be proud of. And if I ever come back before you again, I want you to remember that and not that I've fallen down. These are, as I said, 66 one-bedroom units. And they're, the development to the north that Frank mentioned, we'll do them in the same quality construction. They have metal roofs, galvanized gutters and downspouts, brick bases, front porches. They're actually framed windows. I would say that the quality construction is definitely a couple steps up from what I generally see out there that's done in multifamily. And even things like framed windows, I see a lot of punch-out windows on some of these multifamily deals, and it looks really bad. Just poor quality construction in my mind, and I'm sorry to be critical, but that's just the way I feel about it. We want to do a good job on them, and I would respectfully ask for you to approve, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Mr. Hill.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this item? All right, we'll move to discussion. Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, can you go back to that recommendation slide? At the beginning of this? I am supportive of this. I attended the Planning Commission meeting, and I've listened to them usually at home, but I listened to this one in person and heard their enthusiastic support as well as that of the support of basically on the planning department as well, and it does fit in with what's in the area already. So I am supportive of that. It's interesting, I did meet with the developer, and I was ready to go in there say, this is a great location, the second one, for a pocket neighborhood bungalow court or more ambitious missing middle design. And then he surprised me by pulling out this little drawing, and what did he have but a drawing of a bungalow court, and was talking to me about how it was so difficult for him to do that because of the requirements that we have now in place. So this is a situation where I wish we were further ahead with the missing middle kind of zoning that we're looking at that would allow the developer to do something a little bit more community building that we have seen presented to us. But at this point, he's a small developer. The costs and the time that are involved with doing a planned development here are prohibitive for a small developer like this. And so I wish we could wait a couple of years on this one and get something there. I know the developer does. I appreciate his attention to the detail and the pride in trying to get a better product. This is a perfect location for people this is very close to the vet school. So if you're going to get graduate students, vet students, young professionals, it's close to walkable to all the grocery stores that are on the east side, to the coffee shop. One thing they don't emphasize, but it's very true, this is great access for bike transportation for all those young professionals who want to live the young professional life, because you can get right on the bike lanes, Barnett Shoals or College Station, and then get into the Greenway if they're coming downtown or going to the university. So I will be supporting this.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Fisher.
Wanted to ask the developer, who is this targeted marketing, and what's the price point gonna be on these units?
The target is similar, would be similar to what the market turned out to be on the units just to the north, which was young professionals, grad students, and vet school students. That is the profile of what, there are 47 one-bedrooms, maybe not even a half a mile to the north, and that's the profile of the tenants there. And so we're basically targeting it to that same group. The rents for that development have been they were right about $1,200 a month, and so that's
Okay, thank you.
certainly.
Commissioner Lee.
Yeah, this seems like a really reasonable rezone. That lot's been vacant for a long time, and it's crying out for a project like this. And it is a way to wedge in a little bit of gentle density increase. I feel like this is kind of an ideal site for it. It's really close to the grocery store and a whole strip of commercial uses and that folks could walk to. And I know that the RM zoning does allow small-scale commercial uses as well. Is that correct, Brad? Like, what are the?
There's a couple that it
parameters?
allows that are really, really limited in size. It would allow some limited office, and then it may allow like laundry, or some kind of a service.
It doesn't allow like cafe or coffee
Without getting in special use permitting.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's another large RM2 project right next door, and, it would be nice to get a really small-scale commercial use in there that would cater to the residents of those particular projects. But no, this looks good, and I'm eager to support it as well.
Commissioner Wright.
Thank you. I wanted clarification, is it 66 units or 61? There's some paperwork in here that speaks to a 66. Or maybe have I jumped to the next one?
It's 66. It's
Okay.
They're actually 60. It is a little confusing because there are 15 quads.
Okay.
And then there are two unit. There's a one bedroom upstairs, one bedroom down. But it was a little confusing the way it was written. So it's
Okay. Well, and I guess because it's right in between two daycare centers, it occurs to me that, is it studio one bedroom, or is it one bedroom to where if someone's growing, the family's growing, they would have the advantage of the daycares right next door?
They are not studios at all.
Okay.
It's a real bedroom.
Okay. Thank you. This is great. I hate to see that little I know that little soccer field from when we were at the Y there, and it's a really good place, and I can see where commercial would not work here at all. So I support that change because of the density and the sidewalk and the ease of getting to that. And as Commissioner Myers said, it's the complete street. That section of Barnett Shoals really is the only one we have. So I look forward to supporting this.
Commissioner Houle.
Thank you, Mayor. I currently feel supportive of it also. I have two questions. The first is, given that this is a non-binding plan, am I understanding correctly that with our inclusionary zoning ordinance, if this rezone goes through, they could bring forward some kind of plan to planning staff that might give them more density and also provide some more affordable units through the inclusionary zoning ordinance?
That would certainly be their option, yes.
Okay. And then my other question is, I see this note here that during the discussion at the Planning Commission, which I was not able to attend in person because of the illness I've been wrestling with, but I did enjoy watching, that they suggested the applicant consider less parking to make way for more amenity space on site. Is that something that we as a commission could include as a condition, some kind of waiver for parking if more amenity space were provided?
I'd have to look, I'm not sure that you can add a condition that,
That
as part of a
alleviates it,
straight
yeah.
rezoning that goes against a design standard. I'm not sure. You certainly have that authority as part of a PD and even as part of a special use with a variance, but I'm not sure you can do that with straight rezoning.
Okay. Well, I mean, assuming that such a thing would be of interest to colleagues, especially Commissioner Myers, I'd be interested in understanding if that is something we could offer, because if we could, I'd be interested in.
I'll
in
certainly
doing
look
that.
into that further.
Any other input?
I guess the only thing I'll say about that is that aligns, as I understand it, with when we talk about a lot of the design standards with missing middle that Commissioner Myers is noting we want to move toward. That includes maybe rethinking the way we approach parking minimums, so.
My hand is up.
Yeah.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit. We know we have a housing shortage, and nothing's going to be perfect. I do think that as a commissioner with my fellow commissioners, I wish we would look for these opportunities like conditions that we could do for other developers that come before us. And instead of just kind of closing the door. I see that we're coming up with options on inclusionary zoning, conditions, and I don't think, but for other developers, we just shut the door. So I'm just going to put that out there, that I don't think, and 1 minute, oh, no more student housing, and next minute, oh, this sounds good. So I just think that we're not being as transparent and fair, because if we want single dwelling housing, let's work towards it. Don't come up here saying why you're not going to read something from a piece of paper, and then for another developer, you find conditions, inclusionary zoning, and all these excuses to try to make it work. But that's neither here nor there, because we've been here before.
Commissioner Houle?
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep this brief, but I'll feel like I'm being pretty consistent here. My recommendations around missing middle standards and inclusionary zoning and various other conditions are almost exactly the same as the sort of things that I've said with regard to, for example, previous applications related to the previous agenda item, which I'm assuming is what my colleague was just referring to. I also think there's a big difference between a proposal that aligns with our current future land use and one that doesn't. This one does, the previous one doesn't. I also think there's a big difference between the self-proclaimed largest builder in America, D.R. Horton, and other applicants that come before us. These decisions are a bit different each time because the conditions are a bit different each time. It's the nature of land and people and neighborhoods is that they're not always the same. You can't do the same thing over and over. We try to point to the same things. I'm pointing to the staff report in either agenda item, and I'm pointing to other studies that we've paid a lot of good money for and adopted, most of them unanimously, such as the missing middle study, as examples of ways forward. I would certainly think that any given applicant is hearing fairly similar things from this body. Certainly, I feel like for myself in terms of the type of direction we'd like to go that veers from our existing code, with citations to the reports that back that up. And I also think that there is a big difference between this application and plenty of others, including the previous one. So this weird way that we start to tumble into a passive-aggressive attacking each other discourse, however more civil this year than last year, is troubling to me. I mean, we're making decisions, but we think are the best for the community in a given part of the county. So,
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of further elaborate that I did talk to the developer. I just brought up the idea of the inclusionary zoning, and I believe I might have also talked to Brad about this. But this is a very small piece of property, and I think we talked about the parking issue. That would be a challenge if you added more density in here. And also in terms of the amenities, there are no amenities to this. So there are none of the standard student amenities. There's no pool, there's no exercise room, there's no volleyball court. So yes, it most likely, to be honest, wherever we are, close to different schools, will get some students in there. I think it also is very much a place where someone who is not a student could live and be content. And I'm hoping that's the case, that there's a mix of people in that apartment, whatever we're calling this, as it comes through into fruition.
All right, on November 7th, we'll have the continuing story of the bungalow court. All right, I think we got one more.
One more. Last item tonight is 243 Bray Street. This is another request for a straight zoning change from RS5 to RM2. It does have a conceptual plan and a lot of elevations and renderings included in your packet, but again, those are conceptual in form. You'll see in the staff report, there a lot of the dimensional, they were plans that were not submitted to scale, so it was a little bit difficult to tell, but a lot of the dimensional measurements with some of these conceptual plans look like it would be very difficult to build that way. But again, non-binding plan, just conceptual in nature, so we did not spend a great deal of time evaluating the proposal from that standpoint. You see the property here on Bray Street, and this one is very close. I think the next one, currently it's a small lot, it's about an acre. It's got a house on it in the back. The yellow lot that you see just to the north of it, right in the curve of the road, that's the one that was just recently rezoned in a similar fashion to RM2. I believe the Land Trust brought that one forward. So this would be a compatible request in Planning Commission's opinion. The applicant did bring this forward a couple of months ago to the Planning Commission and was asking for an RM3 density on this property, and the Planning Commission did not support that, but certainly encouraged him to consider RM2 in this location, and the applicant has done that, and that's what is being brought back this evening. Here you can see the subject property here from Bray Street. This is the conceptual layout that shows some townhouses and 4 duplexes. Planning Commission recommendation, they felt like it was compatible with the 23 comprehensive plan from a standpoint of increasing supply and variety of housing types on a small infill lot redevelopment. It's compatible with the zoning map that RM2 is, so it does not require a land use amendment. And as I said before, we weren't really able to evaluate the compliance with the plan due to its lack of an accurate scale. But Planning Commission did feel like this request fits the area's land use context and is recommending approval.
Thanks, Brad.
Let's go back to that.
Any public input on this side? Evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I've been eagerly anticipating this meeting, and I'm excited to share my vision for rezoning 243 Bray Street. I'm J. Paul Smith, a new graduate of UGA's Terry College of Business, and my degree is in real estate. This marks my first commercial development project, and it is an opportunity that I view with huge importance. I want to make a good first impression and deliver the best project feasible for this property. There's an undeniable draw to Athens for its vibrant culture, art scene, and livability. And over my 5 years as a resident, I've come to deeply appreciate everything that makes Athens special, from its historic charm to its innovative spirit and its community values that sponsor responsible growth. My aim is to contribute to Athens' continued growth in a meaningful way. I want to build something that improves East Athens and allows more residents to enjoy this city. Reputation is everything in the world of real estate. As I've learned listening through other developers, there is no substitute for high quality, and meticulous attention to detail pays dividends as years progress. I intend to develop an exceptional community that raises the neighborhood standard and becomes a source of pride for residents. My core values are integrity and mindfulness, and I believe in creating spaces that foster togetherness. I want to put my real estate education into practice to benefit the city that has provided me with so much. I'm committed to honoring Athens through exceptional care in my work, and as a resident, I feel a personal responsibility to help address challenges like housing affordability and environmental sustainability. And as a young adult, I want to build a community that will stand the test of time so in the future I can look back and be proud of my accomplishment. I sincerely appreciate the Planning Committee's guidance on making this the best possible proposal for our community, and their insights have been invaluable. I want to highlight how I plan to address some key points they've made. I am now in full understanding that the site plan, as it's currently depicted, will need extensive changes to fit some of the committee concerns. This does not affect zoning as it stands, but prior to having any permits actually approved during the commercial construction review process, I will need a new and improved plan that addresses concerns from the fire marshal and stormwater management. A suggestion from the committee was consolidating the buildings instead of having the duplexes, as this may allow more efficient use of space for elements like stormwater facilities, tree plantings, and parkings. Changing the site orientation will also improve fire access. We take Athens-Clarke County's fires concerns very seriously and will add fire access lanes to ensure that all improvements are safe. Also, to give separation to the neighbors, a buffer zone between the buildings and the neighboring RS5 homes to the south will be added to give needed separation. And by changing the site orientation, more land can be preserved for conservation, recreation, and community use. Open space is known to foster social connections and is critical to communities. I understand the concerns around density and height restrictions, and I will work diligently to strike the right balance between maximizing housing supply and maintaining an aesthetic harmony with the neighborhood. No improvements will be out of scale with the neighborhood under this RM2 zoning, as there's already RM2 zoned parcels on Bray Street. I want to reiterate my commitment to extensive collaboration with staff to ensure technical aspects like parking, stormwater, and utilities are compliant and environmentally sound. The committee's guidance demonstrates how much, I'm sorry, my time's over.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anyone else here to speak to this item? Commissioner Taylor, I believe, is in your district? Or is
No.
it Commissioner Links? I apologize.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
I think that the RM2 zoning is appropriate here. You know, we're seeing more of it in this area, and the applicant did point out issues with the site plan that I see as well, and I'd love to meet up with him and talk about them. I'm particularly concerned about a buffer zone because this project is directly in the backyard of some single-family homes. I could see how the location of that pickleball court with folks playing pickleball could be a little disruptive right in someone's backyard. So yeah, I'd love to chat with you about some conditions I mean, I know this plan isn't binding and it sounds like you are eager to move things around a little bit. So if you could reach out to me. Yeah.
Other input on this side? Is that the last one, Brad?
That's it.
All right, Brad, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank
We'll go
you all.
ahead and we'll move to old and new business, including those items that were removed from consent.
Mr. Mayor, is now an okay time to take a quick 2-minute bathroom break?
Yeah.
Commissioners like to take a break a little bit earlier?
Yes,
All right.
that would be ideal.
Let's call this a 10-minute break. We are returning to action here. We had several items removed from the consent agenda, and of course, this mayor would be happy to see them back on consent if your answers satisfy you. First of those was item 1. This is the budget amendment to initiate a paint crew pilot program. Commissioner Fisher, you had some questions about this.
Yes, and thank you, Mayor. And actually, I want to, first of all, commend our staff for putting a pilot program together. But my question is, why did we not target our own ACC government employees for this program? And the reason I'm asking those questions is because it's going to be paying $20.74. Painters is a skill type position, and I really think that this pilot program should be more or less targeted towards our employees, more so towards the detention center. Again, great program, and I did a lot of pilot programs at UGA, but it target our staff to give them the opportunity to move up, to make more money. That diversion program can maybe be used for other jobs, but I think, look at this pilot program, we really should look at our staff. See when we have any employees that may be interested in doing this pilot program and give them the opportunity first, say yeah or nay. Then if we don't get any participants, then maybe we want to look that way. But that's just my only concern. I just think we need to look at, when we want to talk about promotion and moving up within the organization, paying $20.74 an hour, good opportunity for our own employees. So.
Manager Williams?
Well, we're just, as y'all well know, we're just struggling with workforce issues, and you make a great point, Commissioner. And, I think it's really a symbiotic success where the diversion center folks are looking to acquire employment, and we need folks, and to open those opportunities up for them to hopefully not only become a temporary employee, but stay on, And so we are trying to partner with our corrections department to find those ways, and that's essentially what this is.
My understanding, these are part-time positions as well, is that correct? I believe I recall that from talking to
Okay.
Central Services Director.
I didn't know it was parts. I thought it was, But still, I think in the future, we need to really take a look at our own employees, giving them that opportunity, and even ask. I mean, I know one of the things that you've been doing, Manager Williams, is meeting with the different departments, and I think it would be a great opportunity for our own employees to participate in a pilot, and maybe do a second pilot. If this, you want to move forward with this, I do have some hesitation because, again, I want to see our employees be the one to have the opportunity to do these things, so.
Well, and just to clarify, it is full-time, but it's temporary full-time.
I see, thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was full-time, so yeah.
Commissioner Houle?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a few questions for staff, and I was working on catching up on this stuff before today, so I didn't get these in advance to y'all. So if you don't have the answers already, I understand why.
Could you speak? Could you speak into the?
I'm trying. I'm like right on it, but my voice is So my first question is, I just wanted to understand: is this program designed to hire folks through the transition center that are currently housing corrections, or to hire people once they're leaving?
I think this is for the diversion center, and then we would hire them through a temp agency.
Okay. And then I guess I'd love to get a little more information on like what role the temp agencies need to play in this, and also like why multiple agencies for just 3 positions, and how we're determining which temp agencies to partner with.
Okay, we can answer those questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, this sounds like a good program and to offer some really good opportunities for folks in the diversion center to get their foot in the door. I actually worked on a paint crew as a side hustle back in the 90s and early 2000s, so it is a great way to kind of achieve some skills that are much needed. You're always going to need folks to paint. So I look forward to supporting this project.
All right, leave this off consent. All right, we're going to move on to item 4. Commissioner Myers, you highlighted this, and this is the trailhead at East Broad Street and the Firefly Trail.
Yeah, I looked at this, and I just have an easy question, and then we can put it right back onto consent, and you guys, can get me the answer afterwards. I looked at the you know, the gateway and the sign and such. And I wanted to ask if there are any plans with the curb cuts that are going in and out of the Firefly Trail. Right now, it's at that right there, because I use that regularly. For me to turn left out of there, I actually have to turn right and make a 180-degree turn, and it feels quite dangerous that I'm doing this. And likewise, when I'm coming in, I either have to go on the sidewalk or go in and make there. So if you could give us some information about whether or not that's going to be addressed.
I made that same maneuver, know exactly what you're talking about. It's a good suggestion. I'll check with staff.
Okay.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I have some of the same concerns about the access, and I hope that'll change and make it a direct access. And that whole stretch of West Broad could really use some protection. I mean, it is the direct gateway to Firefly. So I hope that staff is looking at some better ways to calm traffic and maybe protect those bike lanes. I have questions about, so we granted this property to the Mark for a construction easement as they built their new tower. And they were supposed to cover the costs of some of these improvements. And I was trying to figure it out through the history, and I'm not sure I'm clear. Did we had to postpone it because of the stormwater issues, correct? With our new proposed stormwater project?
Initially, yes. Up under there are three very large conveyances of
Yeah.
downtown stormwater. But right before we were about to put it on the ground, we decided to get in there, clean that out, improve that. And so, yes, that paused things briefly, and then there was another delay as well.
Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to get the delay straight, and I want to make sure that the Marks followed through on its commitment to make some of these improvements. Can you explain all that?
Yes, they have. They've done what they said they were going to do. We had conditioned them spending their dollars before they got their certificate of occupancy to ensure that, they did that, that they followed through. And because of our delays, we amended that to where they gave us the cash instead, and so we've had that. Now, another delay that happened after the stormwater was that Georgia Power was relocating some utilities, and they buried some of the power lines there, which looks a lot better. But they also put a transformer in a spot different from what staff and Georgia Power had talked about, and so that caused a little bit of a redesign there. But they do have an easement for that property and well within their rights to do that. And so, that's where we are. So the delays were of our making, of others' making. The Mark's done what it's supposed to do. Everything's ready to go.
So the Mark gave us cash, which probably isn't worth as much as it would have been when we first made the agreement for the improvements.
Well, I believe the contractors honored the initial price, but we've had to make some design changes, which is why we're in front of you with the change order. And I want to say too, we're out on site and with the park planner, and this is the beginning of the Firefly Trail, and it's supposed to stretch for counties, and so part of this too is trying to make the walls a little bit bigger to make it more attractive. And then also ask the park planner, are there anything that you left on the cutting room floor that you would like to see to make this what it is? And so there are a couple of benches and some trees added. So there's been a little bit of redesign, trying to react to some changes on the ground, and that's why we're here in front of you. But we have the money from the Mark. They've done what they're supposed to do. For the basic initial job, I believe the contractor held their price, and we've added to it.
So that's my other question, as far as it being the gateway. Are there any plans for public art here? I mean, this seems like the place for a big, gateway-style piece of public art. And, I mean, this is a really special regional attraction. You would think we would go out of our way to really make it special, not just another granite wall like is on all our park amenities.
Well, there is a center island there, as you will be leaving, that could host that type of thing, but that's not currently contemplated in this scope of work.
Okay. Are there any plans to
Not at this point, but
conceive of that?
in talking with staff just today, I understand that the Cultural Affairs Commission is considering a new process by which the public can suggest places for new art. I don't know much about it. I just heard about it this afternoon, but that might be a way to do it. Or the commission could just, say you want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like for us to keep in mind this is a location for, a really large-scale iconic work of art that will really speak to the whole community and the whole region, because this is a regional attraction that is definitely going to bring lots and lots of visitors to town.
Well, if the commission wants to go that route for any reason, I would suggest using existing processes to get there.
And just to recall that when we allocated the SPLOST funds for the first phase of Firefly that extends to its current termination point, the public art that's just as one approaches the Trail Creek Bridge was established per our 1% policy. But again, as we look to the next budget year, certainly one of the things that commissioners could ask is that we seek some other funds for public art. Commissioner Thornton.
I guess I want to put another idea out there, and that is working with corporations and businesses to invest in public art. We put a lot of our government money that could go for housing and necessities, and we don't even involve or work with our businesses. Businesses would love to be a part of that type of initiative. When you go to sports games, you see their names up there, but we don't even have a relationship with some of the businesses, and maybe that's one of the things we could look at instead of asking taxpayers to pay for everything that only some people enjoy. So I'd like to see us start having those conversations and see if businesses would like to invest. And it prompts up their name, it beautifies the community, and it brings people more collectively together. This government, after I've been on here this many years, having to deal with stormwater drainage and crashes, and, I think that we need the community to buy in to some of these amenities, these fun things, so we can use tax dollars to pay for some things that is a matter of life and death for some people.
Commissioner Wright.
Yeah, I can see that I'm getting caught up in these drawings. I'm going to have to call Blaine to where we can both be looking at the same visual for the questions I have. It doesn't keep it off the consent for me, but I think it'd be better if I talk to him.
Just want to
when we're
walk
both
through
looking at
of the
same
images.
picture.
All right.
Glad to do that. And I do want to say, too, that the site is pretty burdened with utilities. We've had to work around that transformer and underground, whole bunch of stuff in the right-of-way. And I failed to mention, and staff reminded me, that center island there is also access for those 3 6x6 box culverts that are down there. So if we did do anything with art, we'd have to consider where to place it as well.
Commissioner Thornton.
I guess that sounded like a statement that I made, but could we look at some of the other neighboring counties like Atlanta to see how they work with businesses and get an idea of what entices businesses to get involved with the community?
With regards to public art?
Public art, yes.
Commissioner, I think this was probably about 5 years ago. We revised our donation policy, so there's something of a portal for that already as an existing process. And just to share some of the things that I've seen other mayors engage with, oftentimes there's a sort of third-party facilitator. Columbus, for example, works with a trail design facilitator, and they've engaged with some of the cornerstone businesses there, like Synovus and Aflac, not just for art purposes, but actually for laying out
I would
miles
love
of
to
trail.
see those type initiatives in place, and I think our taxpayers would appreciate it also.
All right, everybody okay with this on consent? Obviously understanding that there's going to be some staff interaction around some of those details.
Yeah.
All right, so Jean, 4 is back on consent. All right, 5 is the Athens Justice and Memory Project's Affordable Housing Preservation Program recommendation. And Commissioner Fisher, you had a question about that?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Couple of things. I appreciate the RFP that went out. I do have an issue that we only got one nonprofit that put in for the RFP. And, we don't have a very good track record with when we do that. Now, the Store of Athens, I believe, will do a good job with this program that they're trying to put together. But again, I think moving forward, for me, when we put out RFPs, if we're only getting one solicitation, it would be a no vote for me moving forward. I think as much as we tout the number of nonprofits in this community, and for us to only get one RFP, I think that's unacceptable for us to take in. I noticed that the store after had asked for $602,000, and it was cut to $531,000. I'd like to know why. I understand this will help probably 12, maybe 15 families, which is great. But that's $70,000 that we cut out of their request. So I'd like to know why that happened. I'll wait for the answer. Then I got some other questions.
Well, I'll respond to you on that. I don't have that answer right now.
Okay, thank you. Then we got the remaining $718,000 for the down payment program. And again, we had put that out for RFP, did not get anything from anybody. I understand we're gonna do it again in December. What are we gonna do different this time that we didn't do last time to attract nonprofits to apply for these funds moving forward? Are we gonna do anything different?
Well, I can ask staff what we did first.
Okay,
I think there's an assumption being made that staff has failed us somehow because we only got one response.
I didn't say that, no,
Okay.
I didn't say, I
But-
don't mean it like that. What I'm saying
Okay.
is, I think that we, if it takes us longer to put it out there, and our staff do a great job, I'm never gonna badmouth our staff. I think, but what we look at though, look at our track record. We have awarded several monies to several nonprofits. We got only one RFP, and we had some failures. So I think moving forward, what we need to do is, if we only get one, then maybe, I know these money have to be dispensed in a timely fashion, but when I say us, I'm talking about commissioners and my colleagues. That should be unacceptable for us. We should be putting the word out, say, hey, these monies are available. And again, I don't know how we engage our nonprofits, when we put out RFPs. I really don't. That's why I'm asking, we didn't get anything for the down payment assistance, so we're gonna put this back out in December. So my question is, what can we do different this time that we didn't do last time to attract somebody to apply for these funds?
One of the things, Commissioner, we may want to consider is us as policymakers engaging with those folks who we know who are in the financial services industry. One of the responsibilities, of course, that banks have is to provide some community investment support. And so one of the things that I talked to Manager Williams about is engaging with some of those lenders who I've worked with in the past or I'm familiar with. I think one of the things that is important to know is that those community reinvestment opportunities are not really well-defined as a federally mandated responsibility. There's something of a generic responsibility placed on financial institutions. But I know that there are some who would who would savor the opportunity to be involved in that. So I definitely encourage all of us, if we know people who are in financial services and banking, to have those conversations, and we could talk after this.
Okay.
Maybe divide and conquer. Would note just very briefly on the nonprofit end that I think in the same way, just that staffing is a challenge for us as an organization and for a lot of for-profit businesses. I think that falls upon some of the nonprofit community too. And so if they're covered up with work, they may be loath to take on more work, even if it's good work. In this case, of course, this is work that's somewhat aligned with what's been an annual program for historic Athens and former formerly the Athens Heritage Foundation, for the entire time I've been in elected office. So they offer through CDBG that home repair program. And so this is kind of right in line. So they probably found it easy just to basically do more of the same work they're already doing.
Right. Like I say, and I don't question, I think they'll do a great job. Like I said, my concern is just having other nonprofits. And I guess my last question is, with the down payment, maybe, you got a committee that was put together. Maybe you all should get with the committee, going back to them and meet with them, and they may have some ideas also. See how we can get more nonprofits to apply for the down payment, along with the banking industry or something like that. But I just reading through this and saying it's gonna help some people, and that's for sure.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate that. But
If I could too, so I think I can answer some of your questions. Staff shared something with me too. So the only times that I can remember where we received one response, particularly with the homeless camp and eviction prevention, those were commission resolutions to say, go do this, and it was very fast. And so that was one reason that led to that. And then other than nonprofits, I think all of our other, RFPs have received multiple proposals. Now, I know we got single proposals for consultants around the plan, the homeless plan, and that's because there's a dearth of work out there. So on your first question about what happened, actually Historic Athens cut the budget. And because they came to find out that this was had a 3-year fuse on the contract, not longer, so this is what I think they can do within that time period. So they, according to staff, voluntarily cut the $70,000. So that's one. And then, I agree with you, and we can always improve how we communicate, getting the word out, because Lord knows there's folks that never know really what happened. And I agree with the mayor, and I know that staff was going to reach through the chamber. Now that we're opening it up to for-profits, that will be a change in the RFP language, and of course, that'll be a different group to market to. And we are going to ask some of the other partners, why they weren't interested. It could be that there was a lot of phase one affordable housing money put out there and they're working at capacity. I don't know. But I think between adding the for-profit, working with the chamber, talking to the committee for ideas, asking our housing partners, was there a reason why you didn't apply? We can triangulate all of that and try and come up with something that entices folks to, because you're absolutely right. These are really good programs.
thank you.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I know Historic Athens has been doing this kind of work for many years through their Hands-on Athens program, which typically focused on exterior improvements. I'm just want to make sure that it sounds like they kind of developed a new program more tailored to this ask. Does it include things like plumbing? I know there's a lot of folks out there who lost their plumbing in that freeze
Yes.
over Christmas and could certainly take advantage of this program. So that's, because a lot of the previous Hands-on Athens didn't necessarily focus on some of that interior work. But I do know that the Land Trust also does a lot of this kind of work as well, but they are pretty full up because they're working on that energy and sustainability aspect of it and retrofitting homes and weatherizing homes. There's just so much out there. This is such a great need in our community with a lot of older homes that folks just can't afford to fix up, and that's part of the reason people are getting put out of their homes is because they can't really live in homes that are unlivable, and a program like this hopefully can help save some family homes and keep those assets in the family.
Well, I think each award is up to $25,000. It could be plumbing, electric, roofing, so any of those major expenses that plague, low-income homeowners, all homeowners.
I have another quick question. Has there been any talk of assistance with insurance, homeowners insurance? Because a lot of these folks get put out because they don't have insurance. And a tree falls on your house and you can't afford to fix it. If you don't have insurance, there's no
That's
hope.
not historically been part of a traditional rehab program. I can certainly talk to
That's something we
staff
might
about
want to
that.
look into, is just helping folks buy some homeowners insurance. I've taken advantage of mine repeatedly.
Commissioner Houle?
Thank you, Mayor. Try to lean way into this mic for you. So, first following up on what Commissioner Fisher was saying, I just, when we get that report from staff, I'd like to know if staff has any insight they can offer, or if they've received any communication from potential agencies about why they didn't apply. I don't know if that is feedback that staff has gotten, but, I know insurance and liability requirements have been getting in the way or complicating things for a lot of folks recently. And then I also know our mayor kind of mentioned that there could be capacity issues. I think the staff report notes, some major allotments of ARPA money from our affordable housing bucket, and I wonder if that might be what's sucking up the capacity, or at least the timing was bad. So I'd just be curious if staff has any insight there. Sure. And then I'll also, and I'll send the specific list of these to staff, but I was looking at the budget, and I just have a lot of questions to try to understand it, because when I read the budget, and I might be misreading it, which is why I have the questions. They're open questions. But it looks to me like a lot of money going into running the program as opposed to paying for the actual repairs on the homes. And my hope with this funding would be that it would be as much as possible entirely going to the repair of homes. I think that's kind of the spirit of what we've done here, and the spirit of the Justice and Memory Project is this kind of reparational effort. So I just have a lot of questions that I'm hoping will have clear and good answers. But when I look at how much is going towards the project manager, for example, I'm struggling to understand how that applies to directly fixing the homes. I'm curious about the $12,000 for insurance, because I would assume that Historic Athens already has insurance given the hands-on program. So why is there additional money for insurance? The utilities, maybe that's helping the homeowners pay for the increase in utilities they'll experience while people are working on site, but I don't really understand just the whole budget in general. So maybe there's a proposal that staff has already shared in a previous meeting, or an analysis that they can provide that already exists. But I'd like to understand this. Thanks.
Maybe Manager Williams, HCD staff, and Commissioner Houle can engage just around some of those details. Commissioner Thornton?
Well, if you're directing Manager Williams and Commissioner Houle to talk about those details, I would like to be a part of that conversation, because they were my concerns also. They're my concerns also. So if there's going to be some conversations before the next meeting, I would like to be a part of it.
We'll respond to everybody and give everybody the same information.
Respond to all of us, that'd be nice.
But my question is now, because he took my thunder there and I was in agreement. Now I got to remember what I wanted to ask. How dare you, Jesse? Come back to me, Mayor, I'm sorry.
All right, and definitely, as you look at the budget and the narrative, just please forward all your questions to Manager Williams, and so it sounds like there are several of them, and that way we can get a summary report for everyone.
I know my question. Manager Williams, you and I had spoke last week about the hiccups in getting the reimbursements out in a timely manner, and you said that y'all were working on a system to try to get money flowing a little bit more fluently, that nonprofits don't have to wait as long as they have been waiting. One of my thoughts is that folk may just don't apply because they've had such not a good experience before. But my question is, have we gotten any closer to alleviate or smooth that out when people submit reimbursements or payment, that it kind of flows faster?
And I'll give an update in the follow-up report for the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll leave this one off consent and move on to, item number 6, and this is the HUD Continuum of Care Homeless Assistance Grant application. Commissioner Houle.
Yeah, so I'm looking at facts and issues number 9, where it says that the Homeless Coalition recommends that all submitted projects be accepted for inclusion in the application, and that HCD concurs. But then when I total up the numbers for the 7 projects listed, it's $903,727, but the grant application is only for about half that, $457,250. So kind of list of questions is why the discrepancy between those two numbers? Like, why not apply for the full amount? And then also, if we do win this full grant and the full amount that's being requested, which of the 7 projects get funded and how much to each? I'm having trouble kind of understanding from this agenda item what comes next, as well as why we didn't ask for the full amount if everybody involved agreed that we wanted to fund all these projects.
We'll give you a full answer on that.
Commissioner Thornton?
This may just be a technical question, and I thought I knew the answer, but a conversation came up a couple of weeks ago. The continuum of care, is that, who actually, does the Homeless Coalition actually write that grant, or is the continuum of care actually HCD?
Well, the staff works with the Homeless Coalition, but the staff actually writes the application, and the government receives it on behalf of the community, and then it is given back out, much like our other process.
So actually, the continuum of care is HCD. That when they get the funding, they distribute it out, but it's actually our government entity.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, HUD will ultimately make the determination of who is funded, not HCD. We put those projects forth, but we'll give you a full and comprehensive.
Well,
answer on that.
actually, I really thought that Advantage was the driver on the continuum of care, so you've cleared that up.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions about this one? Okay, on consent?
I'd actually like to keep it off until we get those answers if we.
All right, we'll leave that one off consent.
And I'll follow up with an email with those questions right now.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 7. Commissioner Myers, you asked about this, and this is supplemental funding for the FY24 electric vehicle purchases.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I was doing the math right on this. It looks like we're approving $134,000 from the SPLOST 2020 Renewable Energy Project 11, but then there's a potential rebate of $52,000, which gets the cost down to $82K. And then there's a 15-year operating savings of $129,000. So I just want to clarify that that return on investment, I mean, we're getting that money back. Whose is that? That's not me. That's okay. We're getting our money back on that in terms of the savings and the rebate. And if you guys could clarify with me that I'm doing that math right. And there was something in there about the rebates where they're going, and I couldn't quite follow that, or, but will that rebate go back into the Project 11 bucket?
That's what we're asking, that we keep the funds there to continue to be able to further the intent.
So, and of course, just to be
As opposed to just disappearing into the general
right, but
fund.
to be
Yeah.
clear, though, the operating savings of $129,000 will be, that just goes back to the general budget, of course. That's part of the.
It's money not spent. Yeah.
That's money not spent.
Cost of
So
living.
that's, yeah, great. Thank you. We
And
can-
there's also a bit of a delay between the time that we spend the money and actually get the rebates as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe a year or so.
Yeah, well, make sure you get them in the right time, because I just realized that my rebate from Georgia Power, I only had 60 days, and I didn't get the last piece in, so. But anyway, I'll still go for the federal tax rebate on that.
Okay, with consent?
Yeah.
Question, Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, hopefully this is a quick and easy one, but just item 7 and 8, I saw in the staff report that there was a meeting when the staff report was written in the future, that was actually yesterday, for the Oversight Committee to review 7 and 8. So, does staff know offhand if they've given the thumbs up? Because I would just think if we're keeping these on consent, we'd want to know that they did, if possible.
Just want to get some feedback from staff on that.
Yeah, we had the town hall last night, and I did not check with staff today, so.
Okay.
But we didn't anticipate any issues with that.
Okay.
But we'll confirm in the follow-up report.
Okay.
Commissioner Culpepper?
Yeah, looking at the budget, the $75,000 for public art, is this on the electric vehicles? Or what is that for?
trying to get to this particular,
It's not,
that's project 6. Well,
it's not easy.
on the entire, well, let's see, I thought that so there's an ordinance, and every SPLOST project, 1% of the construction budget or what will be spent is by ordinance supposed to be set aside for public art. And so every SPLOST project has that, but from time to time, there are projects like this one that staff and the Athens Cultural Affairs Commission would recommend that they're not appropriate for public art. And there are, projects like that. And so in this agenda item, you're being asked to actually approve it as not appropriate for public art. That's the only way we can get around, or not get around the ordinance. That's the only way the ordinance doesn't apply, is if you say it doesn't apply. And so that's what we're asking.
Similarly, there have been SPLOST projects in the past that fund data infrastructure.
Yeah.
And so, a data bank that's going to sit in a closet over the courthouse isn't something where you have public art. And so this is kind of parallel with that. Okay with this on consent, knowing that you're going to get some feedback?
And if I could say, I know a lot of folks are concerned, about the money that the government uses and accesses and things like that. And I do want to give our staff a lot of credit because they're chasing down these rebates. That's something they could easily just forego and just keep moving on. And so they are working very hard to try and capture money wherever we can and to further the intent of the commission.
Absolutely. No, and this is a unique opportunity that we're in right now. All right, so 7's back on consent. We're going to move on to 9. This is the Timothy Mitchell Bridge Corridor Improvement Project, Section 1.
Yeah, I looked at the plan. I'm not exactly sure from the Mitchell Bridge perspective. I was trying to look at where that path is gonna go. So could y'all clarify that a little bit for me? I was looking at that and didn't understand how we're trying to do that path and was it through Ben Burton or I was a little confused about that.
So, are you on 10 now? Is that Mitchell Bridge?
9.
I'm sorry,
We're on
man.
9.
You said that's Timothy and Mitchell Bridge, right?
Well, they're combined and they're combined as a project, but
Okay.
then they're split out as two different segments.
Okay.
Which is fine. I just, if you're ready to
So it'd
move
be,
on to that.
yeah, I know. Well, I mean, my colleagues may have some questions about Timothy Rose. I don't know.
Any questions about the 9 one?
Yeah, I just had a
Commissioner
comment.
Culpepper?
Just
Yeah.
on the work session?
Manager Williams and I discussed this yesterday. I'd like to figure out if there's any way to incorporate any type of traffic calming or speed reduction within this, while we're doing this project on Timothy Road.
Yes, sir. And you've been consistent about that, and I appreciate that. As Commissioner Hamby in that district before. And we talked about, you had even suggested some ideas such as a raised crosswalk, and I did speak briefly with staff today, so I didn't circle back with you. And if we start, Traffic and Public Works is in the middle of its, traffic guidelines, but putting speed tables and raised crosswalks on those higher speed roads is something that could be an issue. But we're going to look at it, and we're going to come back with some feedback on what could possibly be done, or some that would lend itself to being incorporated in that particular design.
And then explain to me about, so we've dropped it down to 35, but that means we can't use the radar
That's correct.
for, is that because we don't have a license for that size, or you can't do a radar for 35 miles an hour?
So basically, the speed is confirmed by rules that we get from the federal government. And there's a design speed of the road, and then when we do speed studies, it's called an 85th percentile. And so when we do speed studies out there, it does not indicate a 35 mile per hour speed limit, but the commission wanted to see that. And so we did that, but when we apply for this triennial radar permit, which we just approved, we have to demonstrate that these speeds are all accurately assigned, according to those guidelines. And so that's the exception there.
And so GDOT essentially says, since the standard vehicular speed is higher than that, we can't radar at that lower marked speed. But I think you're asking good questions about the future elements that could be integrated into this. And one of the things, of course, about this is a preliminary plan, and so then the engineers will move a little bit more deeply in. So we're going to have another cut at this before it comes back for a second approval later on.
Thank you.
Everybody good with 9? Okay with 9 on consent? All right, 9's on consent, Gene. All right, moving on to 10. And I think this was the segment you had a question about
Shared path.
that's adjacent to Ben Burton Park.
Yes, sir. I just, trying to figure out if that gonna go behind Ben Burton or, is it gonna come in front? That's why I couldn't.
It's
I
going to
couldn't
cross the bridge there in front of Ben Burton.
Okay, okay.
So immediately adjacent to the vehicular path, or very close to it, there will be that multi-use path.
Okay. All right, yeah. That's what, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Houle?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I watched the work session, and I think I followed the discussion correctly, but it's always a little harder watching on the little YouTube screen. So am I understanding correctly that the costs of these projects are so high that the bulk of the funding available is going to go to one of the 2 sections of Timothy Road that's in Agenda Item 9, and then y'all would start tackling Mitchell Bridge next, but there's not enough money for it, so but maybe there will be enough money for it with that Bridge Investment Program application that we approved last month? Is that where we're at? Just trying to understand, like, if we're moving forward on this.
Yes.
To set our and the public's expectations, there isn't actually money yet to make the construction of it happen. We're still figuring that out.
And one of the things we mentioned at the work session is, so we get T-SPLOST in this 5-year increment, and we just started in 2018, and the residents renewed that, the voters renewed that. And so we get in a posture of, well, we've got to start design now, and maybe we start construction in year 3, and maybe we're finished by year 5, and that's just the way that things work. And so I think the plans that the commission are pursuing now are pretty extensive, and I think make for appropriate continuation projects along the way. So the answer is yes. But we would not just design what we can build. We're going to go ahead and design some other facilities that you're clearly interested in, and then those will be ready if you choose to fund it that way or any other way. But yes, this Timothy Road, I think, is the first, but you'll ultimately decide that.
One more question, sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Is there funding left over from a 2018 project that we could add to this to be able to do it all at the same time?
I'd have to check, Commissioner.
Yeah, that'd be good to look at.
And one of the things that we'll routinely do as we get close to closing out a SPLOST or a T-SPLOST program is that sometimes there will be those elements where, I'm just going to make this up, let's say a greenway segment didn't cost as much as we'd anticipated. We've got $300,000 of money sitting in there. Staff will come forward, and sometimes in a work session format, to say, hey, we've got this $300,000 pot. Here's a set of recommendations about how that can be used. So those are decision points forthcoming. So, Commissioner Thornton?
I know there's a lot about cost, and I appreciate Manager Williams getting back with me about the ARP interest that has accrued. But when I was in Jekyll Island, there was a county that they not only get the ARPA interest, but they also get a report on the T-SPLOST and SPLOST interest. Can we start getting that, Mayor?
We've been sending that
Manager?
report out since I've come here, in the form of semi-annual reports, and all the monies are tracked in the program.
So if we're talking about some of the things that Commissioner Culpepper is talking about, as far as extra monies and how we can move some, is that I guess that's where I'm trying to get to.
Sure.
Is that a possibility that we could look at where some of that interest has landed at and address some of these shifts in the budget? That's where I was getting to. I'm sorry.
Sure. No, and from time to time, staff will recommend augmenting. I believe the cost of building, y'all voted to augment that with some extra funding. So it Commissioner Thorne, it solely rests with the commission to decide where that money goes. And we do have reports that show that, and you do decide where it goes. And we, from time to time, if there's an important project you've been pursuing and have multiple votes on, and it's shy, then we would suggest that you consider that. And occasionally, some projects that may not have spent all the funds, and so reallocating those. So that does happen from time to time.
Well, I guess I didn't know that we had that. I should have known, but I always take the recommendations from staff. But to be able to look at that, and we have an idea of some things that we know, that's just another resource, I guess, the point I was making.
Commissioner Hamby.
Sure, I just want to make a point too. I think during the work session, we were looking at these two projects as part of SPLOST 18, which is where they started with the planning. So there is some dollars there based on the report online, about $2.8 million. So if you're looking to help augment some of the cost to get certainly Mitchell Bridge part finished and completed at the same time, I think that'd be very helpful in building that connection that we're trying to do and connect neighborhoods and other bike facilities, bike and pedestrian facilities.
And I will say that we do, we're working through the land acquisition on the Firefly. So there's some other 2018 projects that have yet to be.
But I'm talking about the Atlanta the specific Atlanta Highway project in 2018. And there's a duplicate project in the 2023 T-SPLOST as well.
No, Mayor, it would be
Yes.
nice if we get both of those projects done together. Even from a cost standpoint, if we combine them together, we're making good, better prices. So I can support that if we can find the money. So, yeah.
Definitely, and I think as we move beyond preliminary plans into the engineering, that's a great idea.
And maybe we should keep that one off consent in case there's a CDO that we want to put together for that.
That's a good idea.
All right, we'll leave 10 off consent.
Yes.
11 is the Bishop Park improvements and this award of construction services. And I'm sorry, I've not read the report. Did we get bids back on this?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Any questions about this?
Yeah,
Yes, Commissioner Fisher?
yeah, of course, that's in my district, and I looked at the number of bids that we put out there, and of course, they came up above what we got budgeted for. So my question is, again, in Bishop Harbor, as you all know, provided a lot of services to the community. Can we find the funding, either in our reserves or in our general fund, to go ahead and get this project completed? I think for us to be closed again for another summer with that swimming pool, and what we're looking at is a training center for our dolphin swim team. I think it's critical that we find the resources to get this project moving. And I'm looking at those bids. I don't think they're gonna get any better. So we gotta come up from our perspective with some more funding in order to meet the price it's gonna cost us to repair and to get everything that we need. I think I don't want us to penny pinch this thing. We may have a low bidder, but they may not be the right builder. So I want us to really look strongly, see if we find some other financing source to get this going and get this completed.
So the commission did, through CDO, add more scope before we bid it the first time. And we tried to make that work in different ways, and staff's tried to find a contractor to do that. So the way that it was done in this most recent time is to create some more add alternates of some of that scope so that, you don't do it all and you don't get the number and you throw it all out. Well, we'll see where the cost breaks down and what we could possibly cut. So it could be what you say, it could be cutting scope, it could be a little bit of both,
Okay.
But that'll be up to y'all.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And given that we don't have bids back, we'll leave this off
Yeah,
consent.
yeah.
All right, 12 is the fire station number 5 candidate sites. Any takers?
I got a question, just go ahead and get
All
it
right,
kicked
I'm going to
off.
begin with Commissioner Myers. We'll go to Commissioner Wright.
Okay.
And then I think Attorney Drake, were you able to get Commissioner Davenport back on the line?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to know he's here, but I'll start with Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, the first thing I want to do is I wanted to ask manager, and I'll send these things in an email to everyone, if we could get 2 different pieces of information. One is, can you get the population density for the circle area, the 2.5-mile radius area of the present firehouse number 5 and the new one, including the numbers of people who would be within the ideal 2.5 radius of the firehouse that are currently out of that and not being served. So I think that would be helpful to know. And also, can you lay out options and a process for us if the 3 landowners communicate that they're not at all interested in selling the 2.5 to 4 acres of their property, so that we can be considering what our options are before we move ahead with a vote. So that I think is going to be important for us to know, because we did receive some information from one of the landowners today. Process, I want to just make a couple of other comments because I've been very intimately involved with this process. And I would say that everyone involved, including the SPLOST office, would agree that the process needs improvement, and that it was clear to me that there needs to be more education when a project like this goes to the public up front, in anticipation of the residents' concerns, and to really prepare for that ahead of time. I think that, for example, our 2 public input meetings were ones where there was a lot of listening, but there wasn't the communicating that could have helped actually just get some of the information out until afterwards. And I think we all learned from that. The second one, we did a whole lot, better with that. But again and again, for example, I hear from people that do not understand that 60% of the fire department calls are medical emergencies. I talked to one person today on the phone, or 2 people on the phone today, who live in the subdivision we're talking about, who were not aware of that. And that the fire department is very often the first one on site for medical emergencies. And right now, there are EMTs all on the fire trucks, but we have plans in the county to increase that level of service, so that we're anticipating in future years to have advanced EMTs and paramedics on some of our trucks. And so in the end, which was not something that was right there in the beginning, the response time really was an important thing to understand and communicate. And I agree that we could have done better at doing that right up front. But that's what we're really talking about, improving for that area of the community. I've weighed this out because I have listened to all the public input, and I have read all the comments, and it's looking at weighing the concerns and the points that the community and the residents right there are making with the expertise and experience of the fire department who are there. And I asked the fire chief, what if we put it over here at Lexington Road, or what if we put it over to these other sites? They always had a response to that had to do with the best practices from their perspective. So I think here we're weighing what we're getting from the fire chief and the experts and the user group who helped put together that criteria that was used to evaluate the sites, and listening to what the residents say as well. The fire chief, again and again, assured me that they had the question about the denser, I just want to approach this one, the denser areas. We're leaving the denser areas because, my district, or what used to be my district in Cedar Creek, is losing a firehouse that's pretty close to it. And I said, well, there's more people there. And they said, we have a capacity, and I think it was in our work session slide, to respond to double the kind of responses that we're doing right now. And we're, actually the area where the present firehouse is about 2.4 miles from the area that they'd like to put the new one in. So it's still in that 2.5 miles. I think there's a lot to think about here. There's a lot to weigh. And I look forward to getting that information that we can get from the manager's office on the population that's being served here, and also about any other process that we will need to look at and reevaluate as we move forward.
Commissioner Wright?
Thank you. I'm really glad that Commissioner Davenport's constituents came and shared with us what he's been hearing. I think they articulated their concerns. Almost everything they said really resonated with me. The domestic livestock, the wildlife, those are also important factors among the other things. And the information I'm looking for to help me process this is how we evaluated Southeast Park and some of our properties. Just if you could send out how that was evaluated in the process, that'll help me.
Well, I could tell you that what they're looking to do is, expand coverage to parts of the county that aren't covered for fire and emergency services. So if we wanted to not overlap, so it's down on Whit Davis, and it's already overlapping on 2, and just moving it north just creates more overlap. So the epicenter was really around where these 3 sites are located, and then going out 2.5 miles to see who was covered, which we'll look at. So, whether it's there, up at Southeast-Clarke Park or along Lexington Road, it doesn't cover the part of the uncovered area of the county.
Right. Well, I guess maybe then the information that Commissioner Myers has asked for and related to the population type stuff, and we can also get that with the census data. We can all click around on that if we want to self-research. But I am going to have problems supporting more time and effort on 3 sites that aren't wanted by the neighbors and aren't wanted by the property owner. So that's what public input's all about.
Commissioner Davenport, I just wanted to check in with you.
I lost him.
Is he on mute?
Commissioner, you there? Says it's connected, but I don't.
I'll move to Commissioner Link, and then I'll follow up.
Yeah, I heard the comments from the folks who came here as well, and it sounds like a primary concern is the impact that this would have on the rural nature of their community. And I do have the question, why do we need 2 to 4 acres for a fire station? I'm looking at the acreage for our Oglethorpe Fire Station, and it's only 0.64 acres. There seems to be some concern that this is kind of a gateway for a larger facility. And I'm wondering if we could quell those concerns in any way. Can you answer why we need 2 to 4 acres?
Well, I know that with stormwater and parking, there's just some peripheral improvements there, but I'd have to ask that specific question. And what I'd like to do also is suggest that if you do have very specific or detailed questions, submit them in advance. And that way, because this is what this is supposed to be, right? Where you freely ask questions and you get answers. And I'm apologizing that I don't have the answers to some of these tonight. But if you give them in advance, and we can give you really good and comprehensive and informed answers that would also benefit the public as well. So that would be good going forward.
Well, I'm unfortunately, most of those folks have left, but I hope that they will get involved in our growth concept planning process, because that is the opportunity for them to weigh in on concerns about maintaining the rural nature of their overall community.
Commissioner Link, I think what you're hearing are the concerns you will hear, and that concerns that we're hearing in other parts of the community.
Because, I've seen plenty of fire stations in rural communities. I went to high school on a very rural area that had a fire station right next door to the high school. We were surrounded by corn and tobacco fields. But I do hear those concerns about this being a fairly large plot of land we're looking for, and the idea that this might be an expanded facility somewhere down the line.
Well, I want to say, there was a town hall last night, and we heard similar concerns. And so, a lot's been said tonight about trying to engage the public. And I think that we, are heading towards really important discussions around the land use plan for these very reasons. And we're hearing about other issues like short-term rentals, accessory dwelling units. So all those things really feed into this. So I'm saying it for the public, and I'm also saying to our commissioners, trying to get that word out. Those public meetings are going on now about the growth concept maps. It's a lot to learn. Planning and zoning, not very intuitive, but very impactful in everybody's lives. So appreciate the conversations around the fire station. I think that's indicative of where folks are with that type of thing. As we talk about the green belt and what the future of that is, I think we're hearing a lot of hints at what we can hear in the future.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, another question that you're not going to have the answer to.
Well, hold on now.
No, but I don't think so. This was just brought up briefly at one of the site selection meetings where there was mention from, I don't know if it was SPLOST staff or the architects who were there, that this would be, this is a smaller building because there isn't the funding for the public meeting room. So that's just like all of our projects, it's being cut down. But there was also mention of this being a building that was more geared towards the rural nature of where it would be set. And I never heard any follow-up because for me, it would be reassuring if I had some idea what we're looking at. I go out on Wolfskin Road and there's a little volunteer fire department house out there. I'm sure that this will be bigger than that, but it would be helpful as well, wherever we end up deciding to put this, to have some sort of idea how this might differ from some of our other firehouses.
It doesn't. I can answer that question.
Okay.
So the prototype of the fire station is what is being replicated, and that's what was called in the RFP. And so the other thing I failed to mention, besides the parking and stormwater, is this isn't where sewer is. So you've got to do septic fields. So, I think Fire Station 9 also has septic fields. It's a little over 3 acres. So, it's just, we're out there beyond some infrastructure and we're having to make up for it. And you can't build on top of the septic fields or stormwater.
Isn't it true, though, that the construction budget here is less than we would need to build? There are things that are cut out of it. I'm pretty sure the public meeting room is not in there. So it's going to have to be a slightly different design.
But it's based on the prototype, yes.
Yeah.
We don't have enough money, to put the stormwater underground either. So, yeah, there's some concessions being made in the design for sure.
Okay.
But there's not some expansive, facility with future training and all that stuff. I don't know operationally where it's going to go, but it starts with the full prototype and then we work down from there.
Yeah, this was just a comment that was made by one of the architects, I believe.
Thanks, Commissioner. Just a couple quick questions, Manager Williams, and then just one kind of observation, kind of based on public input. There was some question about, would this be a training facility? Is it not the case? We have a separate training facility that's specific to that training role for the department. Is that right?
It's the Newton Bridge Road area, yes, sir.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that the public was aware of that. A question I don't have the answer to, but just as you prepare for the next meeting and future discussion, is what are those environmental mitigation strategies that would be part of any new station construction at any location? If you just have staff respond to that, particularly around the fuel tank, because I know that that's an element of the program that's come up in the past. So that's something that I'd like to hear about in the future. And then kind of one note, because I think what happens often in the public mind is different conversations become conjoined. And so part of what we heard tonight, and that I certainly saw reflected in the public comments as I read through those from the 3 meetings, is the distinction between placing a piece of public infrastructure like a fire station and our zoning. And of course, those are distinct components of how local government works. And just want to make it clear that there's nothing in placement of a fire station that impacts zoning. I'd go back several years. Folks who've been in the community a long time may remember that at one point, Robert Hardiman Road and Morton Road did not line up. And so, well over a decade ago, street alignment changed, And that was just a safety question. That wasn't about foretelling future growth in the area. It wasn't something that had to do with other amenities, whether public or private. It was just about safety. It was lining two roads up in a way that was going to make it safer for drivers passing in any direction. And I see this very much as kind of flowing in that same frame. This is an opportunity to create a public facility that is going to impact future residents and current residents alike, but not one that is going to impact zoning insofar, particularly as the AR status or agricultural residential status of Eastern Clarke County goes. Just want to make that very clear. I think I noted at the work session, sort of parallel with Commissioner Link's comments. One of my uncles lives in Madison County off Highway 172, very close to the Elbert County line. There's a fire station about 1.5 miles from his 25-acre farm, and it continues to serve as a rural community and probably will for quite some time. So appreciate everybody's attention to this. I know it's sometimes challenging when you consider kind of any change. It is the nature of the public experience, the human experience, that change is difficult. That's a phenomenon, and we know that impacts us here. So we're going to move on to item 13, and this is the Department of Corrections Offender Healthcare Services Contract Award. Manager Williams, do you want to make any observations about this?
Sure. It's not so much an award, it's just an amendment. It's already been budgeted for, the contract's been approved, but in review of it, the contract's very specific that care be delivered at the Corrections Institute or facility itself, and did not include the diversion center, even though in practice that's what was going on. And so basically this is a true up, it's been working fine in practice, but the company's asked that we amend it, to reflect that, and so that's what this is.
Commissioner Houle.
Thank you, Mayor. We're looking for those magical scenarios sometimes where there's efficiencies in our budget that might also lead to better services, in this case, better health care for the people who are incarcerated. And noting that we just set up a new contract with the Sheriff's Department at the jail, figured now might be an opportunity to discuss, when and how we might align the timing of the RFPs and the contract cycles for corrections and the sheriff, so that perhaps we could see some cost savings combined with better care, or at least just as good care.
Sure. And there is a slight difference between the two. We should always look at efficiencies, certainly, and they're not only similar in nature, but they're right next to each other, so there's a lot of wisdom in that. I will say, the folks that are at the corrections facility, if they're having major medical issues, then the state takes them back and treats them accordingly. So a little bit different here in that this is for an LPN and a doctor occasionally to come in on certain things, but many major issues, and that's why the contract that you're seeing in front of you is $190,000 and not $4 million. But we can certainly look at those efficiencies.
Sure. Yeah, especially thinking about how some of the things that I think we've found as a body and I think as a community to be beneficial in the contract that we recently approved at the jail is an expansion of more mental health resources and dental resources, things like that. And so in my mind, it would be helpful if we could have all these on one cycle and just see, do we get bids that combine everything at once? What does that look like? So if I understand, and I've already admitted, as you've reiterated to us many times, questions in advance are better than questions on the floor.
No.
And I know I didn't get these to you in advance, but I am just curious, what do we need to do as a body to get those contract cycles aligned timing-wise? Like, would that require extending this contract to end when the other one does, or putting out a bid for a contract that's on an abridged timeline to then end with the other one? Like, what would we be looking at doing?
Well, I was going to say it's a little complicated because the contract with the Sheriff's Department is really led by the Sheriff's Department,
Sure.
and he's a constitutional officer, so you would have to get his. I'm not saying he wouldn't cooperate, but you have to coordinate with the sheriff, and that contract just recently, like you said, got approved, signed.
But technically, you're right. You just want to get them on the same so that if you did an RFP, then it would be, you would include that scope of work in there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I imagine, understanding clearly that we would need that collaboration, but that we don't even get to begin to approach that conversation if we're not on the same timeline, right? So with regards to the existing contract that we've got and the one that we just approved that the sheriff led, I'd be interested, I'll include this in my email as well. What does staff recommend we might do to try to get these timelines aligned? Would that be the next time we put out an RFP for this, it's a shorter timeline? Would that be extending the existing contract, or would that be something else entirely?
Given that contemplates a sort of a future alignment, can we put this on consent for this? All right, Gene, 13 is on consent. All right. 14 is a Government Operations Committee report, and this would simply extend the FY23 nonprofit leases kind of from the mid-year end to the current dynamic to the end of the fiscal year as the committee continues to work on this. Everybody okay with this on consent? Okay. All right, 14 consent as well. All right. 15 is a Government Operations Committee report as well. This is a slight modification of the Parklet program fee schedule.
Yeah.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I'll speak to it really quickly, though. Yeah, I mean, we had a lot, Commissioner Davenport, I guess we can't get through to him, so we had a lot of discussion about this, and particularly about the fees. And the fees that had initially come out were really, really high, many times what they were before, and we were able to get some comps from what other communities are charging, and I think we came up with something that's more in line with what other communities are charging for these parklets, and more fair.
Thanks, Commissioner. Everybody okay with this on consent? Or Commissioner Houle?
Yeah, so not being on government operations and not having been able to watch the meetings, I am curious if someone on the committee can just clarify for me a question. So those fees where we see like the price for like space number 3 and space number 4, is that the fee for all the spaces, or is that the fee for just that additional space? In other words, like
All of them.
all of them. So when you're looking at that fee figure for 3 spaces, that's absorbing the first 2 in it, right? And then
No, it's the
not?
first 2 is, so if you read the fee schedule, it's the first 2 spaces are 500.
Okay.
Right, so that's 2 spaces. And then each additional after that is the way it's framed for the third
So that
and the
that
fourth.
1,300 would be
So-
1,300 in addition to the 500, which would mean that they'd be looking at 1,800
So
or 2,300.
let's just use an example. So if you had 3 spaces, you're talking about, and so those are also quarterly, so you got to multiply it by 4. You're talking about 6,800, I think, for 3 spaces for a year. And so it's 500 for the first 2 quarterly, and then it's 1,200 for the third quarterly.
Essentially disincentivizing the third space or incentivizing just 2.
Okay, yeah, I would ask to keep this off consent, just because I suspect that the same concerns I've heard aired to me when this came up before from business owners is going to come back again. And I'm not necessarily opposed to moving forward in this. I don't serve on the committee. I welcome definitely better clarification from committee members, so happy to talk with you all, but I'm just trying to, yeah.
All right,
Trying to figure out
Hold
this
on,
one.
Mayor, before we move.
go ahead, Commissioner.
Basically, what we did, we sort of left what we're charging them as is until the next fiscal year. Am I correct there, my colleagues, to July? So right now, the pricing is not going to change, and we will be reviewing this again, but until next fiscal year. So I mean, it can stay on consent, but we'll review it again, but not till after the next fiscal year, which is 2024.
Yeah, so this is setting up for the budget proposal that we get handed to us in May.
Yes.
To reflect the fees that are in this agenda item.
Yes.
Right? And then
Yes.
they would take effect in July, essentially, right?
Yes.
And, yeah, I mean, I hear you, that like we'll have an opportunity to discuss this in the budget cycle, basically. But I guess I'd just like to leave open the possibility for us to discuss it again once more before that budget cycle.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, on this, you mentioned that you guys had looked at comparables. Can you tell me a little bit about those comparables? And also is the, I don't think that's included in the packet. There was, and was there some sort of like formula used that looked at lost parking revenue over the year for those spots? I mean, where did that come from?
So the last time the GOC brought this and
yeah.
y'all decided to hold the fees, that was based on the revenue we're losing. So we were trying to recoup the revenue from parking. But y'all said that was a little too high, so we went back to GOC and we looked at others, and we can share the same benchmarks we shared with the GOC in the follow-up, so you have that.
Yeah, that would be helpful,
to
so if
help answer
people
that.
ask about it. But
Yep.
that's also a good reminder, too, that we're not recouping the lost revenue. How much of the lost revenue do we recoup now? Like 50%? I mean, I can't remember what the change was. Does
I
anyone
don't have
know?
on the top of my
Well, maybe
head.
you
I
could
have
share
those
that.
documents. I
Mike
can
knows
share
that.
them with you.
Well, if you factor in a construction permit for one spot per day is $10, $363,650 a year that they could rent a construction spot. There's two spots, $7,200, so we're definitely not recouping the construction cost of it. So and this would be three spots at $6,800. So there's, I think the committee saw some benefit in trying to encourage commerce and some extra activity outside. So I think we've reached a fair price for the use of community property.
It's always a balancing equation.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Commissioner Fisher?
Can I respectfully ask our colleague, Commissioner Hu, to leave us some consent? We don't have to deal with it in budgets. I don't think, in my opinion, that, we need to, we all got the price of the next budget cycle, and we can have those discussions then.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to leave it on consent, but I also suspect that we might get enough feedback that we may end up wanting to speak to it come the voting meeting again anyway, once we get this additional information and everything. This isn't me necessarily being against supporting the measure.
Right,
It's just
yeah.
me feeling like it's likely that we're going to want to discuss this more before we vote on
And
it.
just remember that even if it's on consent, the public can speak to that. And after hearing that public input, you could decide to pull it off.
And then just to follow up with Commissioner Meyer's question, the four-space cost is what would be required to recoup the total amount. So $12,000 annually is what we would get from four spaces typically. So what we tried to do with GOC, what GOC decided to do is try to get that if somebody wants four spots, because that's taken a lot of parking away from downtown. So that would be the full cost recovery.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I pulled up my documents from that meeting and reiterating, we came up with what's called a blend that subsidizes small parklets and moves to full cost recovery for larger parklets.
Okay.
So it's a very much reduced rate just for those two spaces. But if you want to go whole hog and take up half the block, you're going to have to pay more in line what it costs to actually park in those spots.
I'll note that a classic phenomenon here in the classic city is the least used elements of our public sector are the ones with the most discussions. All right, we're going to move on to 16. This is the Office of Operational Analysis FY24 Audit Work Plan. And Auditor Hassemer, this is your first opportunity to provide us with a work plan. Would you like to make some just overview comments?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is the first work plan that our office is putting forward, and certainly welcome any feedback on it, but recognizing that the chair of our audit committee, Commissioner Fisher, as well as Commissioner Myers, serve on that. And just like to thank you as a commission for initially providing some input into this process in the summertime. Recognizing that this function of our government has been absent for a period of time, it's important to recognize that there are concerns that perhaps you as a commission have saved up over time, and you were able to provide those with us. And then also taking that to the audit committee, providing some sort of a metric as to what is possible to be accomplished in the remaining fiscal year. I think this work plan in front of you is something that we feel confident that we can get to. We're certainly going to strive and do our best, and I look forward to getting to work.
Commissioner Fisher, Commissioner Myers serving on the committee. Any follow-up?
Oh, I missed the our last meeting 'cause I was out of town, but first of all, I want to thank my auditor, Gavin Hassan, for really putting this together and sort of guiding this. But we did get feedback from all the commissioners for some of the items or departments that we wanted to look at, and we came to a consensus that we thought, again, looking at our HR department, some of the things that they're doing to start there. And I think one of the good things about our work plan is also there would be small audits with other departments moving forward. Hopefully, he's gonna get his staff fully staffed soon. We got one person hired already, and we're looking to hire one more. So I think moving forward, we off to a good start. Do want to recognize we do have 3 community members that are part of that audit committee, and I better not say that because I forget somebody, but anyway, we got 3 people from our from the community that's helping us with this. So I think moving forward, I think we got a good plan, a good start. And again, I think once we start this process and how long it's going to take, we'll get some good feedback. And I think we're on the right track.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I will publicly thank Beth Higgins, Carl Blunt,
Thank you.
and Zernona Thomas, who've been great partners on this. Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I'm really pleased with the work that mostly our new internal auditor, Gavin Hassemer, has done. And the really, I think, strong interactions that we've had as the committee has been formed as well that works with this. And I'd like to give you a little bit of opportunity to explain a little bit, perhaps I spaced it out after these several hours in here, but the difference between the comprehensive performance audit, I think that's important for the community to be aware of, which is the real intensive thing. The first one we have this year is 6 to 7 month time frame, and that's not on everything about human resources, but focusing in on employee recruitment, hiring, and orientation. What's new, and I'll give my summary and you could add on, are these what I think I see you're calling the periodic audits in here, which is a quicker 1 to 2 month audit that's going to follow a standard procedure. It looks like it goes to standard review of basic performance, financial, and compliance practices. And you have a fairly aggressive or plan for that. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Myers, and I think you did a good job of summarizing it. And just for everyone's sake, I know this evening you're going on a long time, so with the permission of the mayor, we have adjusted the work session agenda to include a more descriptive, comment and kind of go over what our work plan will entail going forward and what our future plans are. That'll be on your November work session that will present something like that, but we certainly didn't want to derail this approval and getting to work right now. Real quickly, though, the comprehensive audit that you see that is sort of the 6 to 7 month one is more of what I think you have traditionally seen in the past, where it is a very in-depth, focused audit of a specific program or project, and really getting to the root of all the factors that come into play with that specific topic. The more periodic audits that we're proposing are to sort of speed up the process a little bit, recognizing that we're going to have those 1 to 2 comprehensive audits a year, that we really dig down deep into a topic, but at the same time, not let a long period of time go by where all of our departments aren't touched in some capacity by at least a check-in. And so that's what this periodic audit is to basically say, how are you doing from a performance, financial, and compliance standpoint with the basics? You know, your mission statement. How are you aligning with the strategic plan and goals of the commission? What are you doing from a financial standpoint to keep your budget in check? Are there internal controls in place to make sure that we're intaking monies properly and dispersing them in a timely manner, as well as just the general compliance for each one of those departments? That are you following the applicable laws for what you're charged with doing? How are you on your accreditation processes and your professional organizations? How are you doing with staffing? It's a quick, I don't want to say it's just checking the yes or no box, but in a way, we're going to those departments with a set criteria each time to basically go through, check a couple boxes, and then report back to you all and management. These are things that we observe that perhaps need a little bit more attention, or, have gone a bit long with a check-in. So, again, we'll follow up a little bit more at next month's work session on those details.
Thanks,
Can I-
Gavin.
Can I just follow up with a request on that, at the work session? If you would just give us an update on how that work that you're doing on the auditing, the office, how it's, what the balance is with the work that you're doing with the public safety oversight, and how staff is being used in that way, and that would be just a good check-in on that as well.
Yes, we can do that.
Commissioner Wright?
I really appreciate this report. I really appreciate the work that you guys have been doing. I was chair of the audit committee for a long time, and you guys are hitting the ground running, and it's impressive. It's ambitious, but confident in what your work. I do want to have a tidbit, being chair of the property committee, is when you're speaking and working through this first audit about work environment, I hope that you can have some discussions on workspace limitations or lack of workspace, use of home, working at home, and I think that these are all factors that are certainly relevant with recruiting, retention, hiring, and retention. So if that, some of that stuff.
Commissioner, I think those will be applicable to both the performance audit, the larger one, as well as working those into just the check-in audits that we do, as well as to make sure that, based on the staffing, that we have the room to work and conduct ourselves, so, yes.
Okay, thank you. And this looks great, and consent, I think, is a good nod to it as well.
Everybody okay with consent?
Yes.
All right, very sweet. Making a note of this. 4 in a row. All
No,
right.
I think 15. Oh,
Item
you did.
17 is a resolution to continue efforts to reform and improve mental health services. And both Commissioner Thornton and Commissioner Davenport, and I think Commissioner Houle as well, highlighted that the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia is asking the state effectively to continue to enhance both the operations and the funding that really gained steam a couple of years ago when the sadly now deceased former Speaker of the House of Representatives was carrying this. And in the most recent legislative session, the 2023 year, there was just a little bit of forward momentum, but there were some larger scale proposals that didn't make it across the finish line. They passed the House, but not the Senate. And so this is just asking the state to really continue with the momentum that started a couple of years ago. So, Commissioner Thornton?
When I spoke to you today, I know this is the resolution, but I've sent each of the commissioners the actual resolution from ACCG. There's only been 75 counties that have signed on, and I don't know if we could do it. We probably need to do it if we want to do it, I guess at the December meeting. Or is it possible to review the resolution and sign it in November?
This would be passed in November.
Okay, November. No, wait. The resolution that, yeah, from ACCG.
That's right.
Okay, so if everybody hasn't seen it again, I resent it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Commissioner Houle?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, as far as I can tell, it's pretty similar to the one we got from ACCG, and I appreciate Commissioner Thornton working to ensure that we've all gotten to see it. I did have one request, which if colleagues would be amenable, it seems like it'd be simpler to bring forward without like a CDO or something, which is to replace the word citizens with residents and/or people as applicable. And I say that noting that we've had advocates point out for years the value in doing so. It's been underscored by our inclusion office in the past. There's many people in our community who need access to these resources, but for a variety of circumstances may not have full citizenship. And so just tweaking that one word in here, I think would be meaningful. So I see a couple people nodding, but is that something that we can direct staff to do and then
And certainly.
not have to make a CDO of it?
In a university community, it's been the case for many decades that a lot of folks are residents but not citizens as they come here for academic purposes and employment purposes and otherwise. Just was actually rereading An Education in Georgia by Calvin Trillin, which is the story of the integration of the university, and it even noted then how many non-resident students or non-citizen students there were. Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, I guess my only question is, with ACCG leading that charge, I guess they want to be consistent, so I'm not sure, Mayor, do we go back to ACCG and ask them about the wording? Because I think they want, from what we understood when we was down there.
I certainly could talk to those folks and see if that makes any difference.
Right, yeah,
I would not anticipate that it would,
probably won't, but yeah, that's
given
my
its
question, yeah.
bent in the same direction.
Okay, I know it's just one word, but again, I think they want us to be consistent with what we put out there, so.
Especially because it says it in the title.
And I
Right,
do
because it's
think
in the
that,
title.
and I do think that Commissioner Fisher is right that we need to go back. This is they're taking the lead on this. And there was a vote that happened on the marijuana thing, and it became a big issue because it was the South against the North, Georgia. So I don't think, some things that we think make sense, other parts of Georgia are not where we are progressively or thoughtfully. So if that I would suggest then that you or whoever to follow up and see if it makes that big of a difference.
My brother-in-law is a drug investigator in South Georgia. He says they like to smoke weed there, too.
Not necessarily, Mayor.
Commissioner Hoyle?
I appreciate the laughs. And also, sorry to be the wet rag that makes it serious again. But I guess, I hear what colleagues are saying. I think that if once we adopt it, it's our resolution. I'm sure we won't be the only community that makes some kind of minor tweaks to what comes to us from ACCG. I think it'll be very clear that this is in alliance with what ACCG and the many other counties in the community want. Most counties in the community don't have an inclusion office either, but we do. And I think it's important, however subtle it may seem to many, for us to make that change. So I guess I would ask staff to get us some kind of response on whether they'd be making the change in time for myself and whoever wants to co-sponsor to put together a CDO version if necessary. So if the version we're going to get on our agenda is not going to have that change, I'm going to put together a version that does. So.
I'll check in with ACCG tomorrow on the resident question. All right, we have short-term rental moratorium extension. It's listed as title only, but just today, the attorney's office was able to get us this resolution. Attorney Drake, would you just like to describe kind of how this lines up with the planning department's process as they move to a ultimate ordinance, which I understand is going to also be accompanied by software that's going to track the use of short-term rental activity within the county?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this will extend the moratorium for 90 days to the Tuesday, first meeting in February. It's my understanding plan's working on bringing the
Permanent ordinance.
the permanent ordinance back related to the changes that have been recommended. I can check on a timeline for that, Mr. Mayor,
Perfect.
let you know.
Any questions about this? All right. And last item is, as you've seen sometimes in the past, the judiciary does request state ARPA funds. They're not requesting any of our Athens-Clarke County pot of ARPA funds. But of course, this is a budget item, so it does have to flow through us for approval. And so we'll be receiving some more information about this from the judiciary. Mr. Houle?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, and I think we're all probably of a similar mind, but because this and the previous item are presented as title only to the public, we're keeping them off consent.
We'll keep these off consent so the public has a chance to see the full text. Yep, that's exactly right.
Number
One,
18, did you say number 18?
18 and
18
19.
is presented in our budget and on the website as title only still, so you can't
Number
like.
18 needs to stay off consent.
So they need to stay off consent.
So I
the
can
public
abstain.
can read that whole thing.
So I can abstain.
Certainly, absolutely. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn the agenda setting session and enter the executive session.
So moved.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Link and a second from Commissioner Fisher. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we are now in executive session and have just a single item, so we're going to go ahead and close the doors to the public.